Makina couldn't breathe. Not because of the contractions ripping through her body like broken glass, not because the machines beeped louder with every push, but because the man she loved just walked into her delivery room holding another woman's hand. And he wasn't looking at her. He was looking at her. Behind them, his mother stepped in wearing diamonds that probably cost more than Makina's entire life. Claudette Giovanni didn't even glance at the monitors or the sweat dripping down Makina's face. She just smiled, cold, sharp, like she'd been waiting for this moment. "Do it now, Roman," Claudette said, adjusting her necklace. "Fire her. She served her purpose." Hi, viewers. Kindly tell us where you're watching from and what time it is. Warm welcome to the family. Enjoy the story. Makina blinked through the tears, blurring her vision. 9 centimeters dilated. Her daughter was minutes away from being born. And Roman Giovanni, the billionaire everyone in California worshipped, the man who whispered he'd protect her, dropped a folded document on her swollen stomach. "You're done, Makina," he said. His voice didn't shake, didn't crack. "Sign it." Her chest burned, not from pain, from betrayal. She looked at Alessia. Perfect makeup, perfect dress, perfect smile. The woman clung to Roman's arm like she owned him. Maybe she did now. "Roman, please," Makina whispered. Her voice barely made it past her lips. "Our baby—" "There is no our," Claudette cut in. "There's his future, and you're not in it." A contraction hit hard. Makina gasped, gripping the rails of the hospital bed. The nurse rushed over, checking the monitor, but no one else moved. Roman didn't reach for her hand, didn't tell his mother to stop, didn't do anything. He just stood there. Alessia leaned into him and whispered something that made him nod. Makina's heart cracked clean in half. She'd given up everything for him, her dignity, her boundaries, her better judgment. She told herself he was different in private, that the late-night talks and gentle touches were real. She believed him when he said they'd figure it out. But here he was, in the room where their daughter was about to be born. And he brought her. "Sign the papers, Makina," Roman said again, firmer this time. "You'll get a severance, enough to start over somewhere else." "Somewhere else?" Makina's voice broke. "I'm about to have your baby." Claudette laughed, actually laughed. "Sweetheart, do you really think this changes anything? Girls like you don't end up with men like my son. You were convenient. Now you're not." The words hit harder than any contraction ever could. Makina wanted to scream, wanted to throw the papers back in his face, wanted to tell him exactly what kind of man he was. But another wave of pain tore through her, and all she could do was cry. The nurse looked at her with pity. "Honey, you need to focus. The baby's coming." But how could she focus? How could she bring a child into a world where the father wouldn't even hold her hand? Roman turned toward the door. "I'll be outside. Let me know when it's over." When it's over. Like this was a business transaction. Like their daughter was paperwork that needed filing. Alessia followed him, heels clicking on the tile floor. Claudette stayed a moment longer, looking down at Makina like she was something stuck to the bottom of her shoe. "You should have known better," she said softly. Then she left too. The door closed, and Makina was alone. Except she wasn't. Not really. Because in New York City, 3,000 miles away, an attorney named Samuel Bray had just opened a dusty leather envelope that had been sealed for 30 years. Inside was a handwritten letter from a man named Caleb Hayes. "Find my granddaughter, Makina Hayes. Release her inheritance the moment she gives birth. She is the rightful owner of everything I have built." Samuel's hands shook as he read the dollar amount. $2 billion. He checked the timestamp on Makina's hospital records. Her due date was today. Right now. He made 3 calls, pulled up her last known address, traced her employment history, and then his jaw went tight when he saw the name. Giovanni International. The same family Caleb Hayes had saved from bankruptcy decades ago. The same family that owed him everything. Samuel grabbed his briefcase and headed for the door. "If what I think is true," he muttered, "McKenna doesn't just own money. She owns them." He booked the next flight to Los Angeles. But would he make it in time? Long before the delivery room nightmare, long before Roman Giovanni ever knew her name, McKenna Hayes learned what survival really meant. She was 8 years old the first time she watched her mother cry over an unpaid electric bill. They sat in the dark that night in their small Charlotte apartment, eating peanut butter straight from the jar because the stove didn't work without power. Her mother wiped her tears and smiled anyway. "Baby, you're meant for something big. I feel it in my bones." McKenna believed her. Because when you're 8 and your mother is your whole world, you believe everything she says. Her mother worked 2 jobs, cleaned offices at night, served breakfast at a diner every morning, came home smelling like bleach and bacon grease, but she always tucked McKenna in, always kissed her forehead, always whispered, "You're going to be someone." But life doesn't care about whispers. When McKenna turned 23, cancer came. Fast, cruel, the kind that doesn't give you time to prepare or say all the things you should have said years ago. Her mother fought. God, she fought. But medical bills piled up faster than hope. The treatments didn't work. The insurance didn't cover enough. And one cold February morning, McKenna sat beside a hospital bed and watched the only person who ever believed in her take her last breath. She held her mother's hand until it went cold, and when the nurse asked if she wanted a moment alone, McKenna shook her head. Because staying in that room one more second would have broken her completely. If you've ever lost the person who made you feel like you mattered, you know that kind of pain doesn't just hurt. It rewrites you. 2 weeks after the funeral, McKenna packed 2 suitcases. One had clothes. The other had every letter her mother ever wrote her. She bought a one-way ticket to San Diego and prayed California would feel like a second chance. It didn't. California was expensive, cold, unforgiving in ways Charlotte never prepared her for. She applied for jobs everywhere, retail, restaurants, anything. But rent was $2,000 a month for a studio apartment the size of a closet, and nobody wanted to hire someone with a resume full of gaps. She was running out of money, running out of options, running out of hope. That's when she saw the ad. Live-in maid position, private estate, room and board included. Must be discreet, professional, and available immediately. McKenna didn't want to be anyone's maid. But desperation has a way of rewriting your standards. She applied, got an interview, and 3 days later, she stood outside a mansion in La Jolla that looked like it belonged in a magazine. The Giovanni estate. She didn't know who they were. Didn't know Roman was a billionaire hotel mogul. Didn't know his mother controlled everything from the marble floors to the people who walked on them. All she knew was that she had a bed, a paycheck, and a chance to breathe. For the first 6 months, McKenna kept her head down, cleaned the rooms, ironed the clothes, smiled when spoken to and disappeared when ignored. She learned quickly that people like the Giovannis didn't see maids, they saw furniture, and she was fine with that. Invisible felt safer than noticed. Until the night she found Roman Giovanni sitting alone in the kitchen at midnight, crying like his world had just collapsed. McKenna froze in the doorway. She'd been coming downstairs for water, didn't expect anyone to be awake. Definitely didn't expect to see California's golden billionaire slumped over the marble island with his head in his hands. His tie was loose, his shirt wrinkled, his shoulders shook. She should have turned around, should have pretended she didn't see him, but something about the way he cried made her chest tighten, because she knew that sound. That kind of crying wasn't about money or business or anything small. That was grief. "You okay, sir?" she whispered. He didn't lift his head, didn't tell her to leave. He just said, quiet and broken, "Do you ever feel like everyone wants something from you but you don't know who's real anymore?" McKenna's breath caught. She knew that feeling too well. She stepped closer. Not too close. Just enough to let him know he wasn't alone. "Yeah," she said softly. "I do." Roman finally looked up. His eyes were red, tired, lost in a way that didn't match the confident man she'd seen on magazine covers. And when their eyes met, something shifted. Not loud, not dramatic, just real. They talked for 20 minutes that night, about pressure, about loneliness, about dreams neither of them had said out loud in years. McKenna told him about her mother, about losing her, about moving to California with nothing but hope and 2 suitcases. Roman told her about his father's death, about inheriting an empire he never asked for, about his mother's expectations crushing him every single day. When the conversation ended, McKenna went back upstairs. She told herself it was a one-time thing, a moment, nothing more. But the next night Roman found her again, and again, and again. The conversations grew longer, deeper, more dangerous. McKenna tried to guard her heart, tried to remind herself that men like Roman didn't choose women like her, but his touch was gentle, his words were sincere, and his presence made her feel seen for the first time since her mother died. She didn't mean to fall for him, but loneliness makes people do reckless things, and love doesn't ask permission. So why, after all those late-night talks and whispered promises, was Roman's mother watching McKenna now like a predator watches prey? The third night, Roman found McKenna. She was folding laundry in the guest wing at 1 in the morning. She didn't hear him walk in, didn't know he was there until his voice broke the silence. "You're always awake." McKenna jumped, pressing a hand to her chest. "Mr. Giovanni, I didn't—" "Roman," he said. "Just Roman." He looked different than he did during the day. No sharp suit, no cold expression. Just a man in sweatpants and a wrinkled t-shirt, holding a glass of whiskey like it might save him. "Can't sleep?" McKenna asked. "Never can." He leaned against the doorframe. "You?" "Same." They stared at each other for a long moment. And then, like it was the most natural thing in the world, he sat down on the floor beside the laundry basket. McKenna hesitated. This wasn't professional, wasn't safe. But something about the way he looked at her made her forget every rule she'd set for herself. She sat down too. "Why are you really here?" Roman asked. "In California. In this house." McKenna folded a pillowcase slowly. "Because I didn't have anywhere else to go." "That's not an answer." "It's the only one I have." Roman took a sip of his drink. "My father used to say that the people who have nothing left to lose are the only ones telling the truth." McKenna glanced at him. "Did you believe him?" "I didn't. But I'm starting to." Something shifted between them. Not loud, not obvious. Just a quiet understanding that neither of them had to pretend right now. "What about you?" McKenna asked. "Why are you sitting on the floor with your maid at 1 in the morning?" Roman smiled. Sad. Tired. "Because everyone else wants something from me. And you don't." McKenna's chest tightened. She didn't know what to say to that. Didn't know if she should say anything at all. So she didn't. They just sat there in the quiet. Too lonely. People pretending they weren't falling. After that night, it became a routine. Midnight talks in the kitchen, whispered confessions in hallways, stolen moments when no one else was awake. Roman told her about his father's legacy, about the pressure of running an empire he never asked for, about his mother's iron grip on everything he did. McKenna told him about her mother's death, about moving to California with hope and leaving with nothing but survival instincts, about feeling invisible in a world that only noticed people like him. And somewhere between the third conversation and the 10th, something dangerous started growing. It wasn't supposed to happen. McKenna knew that. She reminded herself every single day that men like Roman didn't fall for women like her. that this was temporary, that he'd wake up one morning and remember who he was and who she wasn't. But Roman didn't act like a man who was pretending. He listened when she talked, laughed at her jokes, looked at her like she mattered, and God, McKenna hadn't felt like she mattered in so long. One night, after a conversation that stretched past 3 in the morning, Roman reached for her hand. McKenna froze. "Is this okay?" he whispered. Her heart pounded so loud she thought he could hear it. "I don't know." "Me neither." But he didn't let go. And neither did she. The night everything changed, McKenna was cleaning the library. It was late. The house was quiet. She thought everyone was asleep. Then, Roman walked in. He didn't say anything, just closed the door behind him and crossed the room in 3 long strides. "I can't stop thinking about you," he said. McKenna's breath caught. "Roman, I know I shouldn't. I know this is wrong. But I can't." She should have stepped back. Should have reminded him that she worked for him. That this could ruin everything. But when he cupped her face and looked at her like she was the only thing that made sense in his world, all her logic disappeared. "Tell me to stop," he whispered. McKenna didn't. What happened next was soft, gentle, the kind of intimacy that didn't feel rushed or wrong. It felt like 2 people who'd been lonely for too long finally finding something real. Afterward, they lay tangled together on the couch, and McKenna tried not to think about what this meant, tried not to hope for something she knew she couldn't have. Roman kissed her forehead. "I don't regret this." "You will," McKenna whispered. "No, I won't." But she knew better. She'd seen how the world worked. She knew that men like Roman could have moments like this, and then go back to their real lives without looking back. Still, when he held her close and told her she was beautiful, McKenna let herself believe him. Just for tonight. The next morning, everything felt different. Roman smiled at her during breakfast, touched her hand when no one was looking, whispered, "Later," in a way that made her heart race. McKenna floated through the day. For the first time since her mother died, she felt something close to happiness. But she didn't notice Claudette watching from the hallway, didn't see the way Roman's mother's eyes narrowed when Roman laughed at something McKenna said, didn't hear Claudette make a phone call later that afternoon, voice cold and sharp. "We have a problem," Claudette said into the phone. "The maid is getting too comfortable. I need you to remind my son where he comes from, and more importantly, where she doesn't belong." McKenna had no idea that the woman on the other end of that call was named Alessia, or that Claudette had just set a plan in motion that would destroy everything, because powerful women like Claudette Giovanni didn't let Maid steal their sons. They removed threats. And McKenna? She'd just become the biggest threat of all. Claudette Giovanni had been watching McKenna from the moment she stepped foot in the estate. Not the way an employer watches staff. Not even the way a mother watches her son's employees. No, this was different. This was the way a queen watches a threat. McKenna first noticed it during her second week. She was polishing silverware in the dining room when Claudette swept in, heels clicking like a metronome against marble floors. "This house requires refinement," Claudette said, running a perfectly manicured finger along the table's edge. Her gaze lingered too long on McKenna's hair, on her hands, on everything that made McKenna different from the blonde, polished women Claudette probably preferred. McKenna nodded. "Yes, ma'am." "Refinement," Claudette repeated, sharper this time. "Not just in appearance, in behavior. In knowing one's place." The words hung in the air like smoke. McKenna kept polishing, kept her head down, kept pretending she didn't understand what Claudette really meant. But she understood perfectly. At first, McKenna tried to brush it off. New households were always tense. She'd worked for demanding people before. This was just another version of the same story. except it wasn't. Claudette didn't just demand perfection. She hunted for flaws. She'd walk past McKenna in the hallway and pause, stare, then move on without a word, leaving McKenna feeling like she'd failed some invisible test. She'd correct McKenna's tone during staff meetings. "We don't speak that way in this house." She'd judge McKenna's clothes on her rare days off. Interesting choice. Every comment was wrapped in politeness, but the venom underneath was unmistakable. And the worst part? McKenna couldn't say anything, couldn't defend herself, because women like Claudette didn't fight with raised voices or obvious cruelty. They smiled while they destroyed you. The shift became impossible to ignore during the Giovanni family's monthly dinner party. McKenna was serving wine to a table full of California's elite, lawyers, investors, people who wore watches worth more than her yearly salary. Roman sat at the head of the table, laughing at something a guest said. He looked confident, powerful, every inch the billionaire heir everyone expected him to be. But when McKenna passed behind his chair to refill his glass, his fingers brushed hers. Just for a second. Just enough to remind her that last night happened, that it was real. McKenna's heart skipped. She glanced up. Roman's eyes met hers, soft, secret, promising. Then Claudette cleared her throat. McKenna froze. Claudette was staring directly at her, not at Roman, at her. And the look on Claudette's face made McKenna's blood run cold. It wasn't anger, it was calculation. Like Claudette had just confirmed something she'd been suspecting all along. McKenna quickly moved to the next guest, heart pounding. She could feel Claudette's eyes following her across the room. Later that night, after the guests left and the house finally went quiet, McKenna was cleaning up the dining room when she heard voices. She paused, hands frozen over a stack of plates. The voices were coming from the hallway, Claudette and Roman. "She's becoming a problem," Claudette said, low and sharp. McKenna's breath caught. "Mother, she's just doing her job." "Don't play stupid with me, Roman. I see the way you look at her." Silence. McKenna pressed herself against the wall, heart hammering. "She's different from the others," Roman said quietly. "Exactly," Claudette hissed. "That's the problem. Girls like her don't belong in families like ours. She's a maid, Roman. A maid. Do you understand what people would say if they knew I was what? Sleeping with the help." The words hit like a slap. McKenna squeezed her eyes shut. She shouldn't be listening. Shouldn't be hearing this, but she couldn't move. "I care about her," Roman said. McKenna's chest tightened. He cared. He actually said it. But Claudette laughed, cold, mocking. "You care about her the way men care about things that entertain them temporarily. But she's not temporary anymore, is she? She's getting ideas, thinking she belongs here. She does belong here." "No, she doesn't." Claudette's voice dropped to something lethal. "And if you don't end this, I will." McKenna's hands shook. "You can't control every part of my life," Roman said. "I built this family. I protected this name. And I will not let some girl from nowhere destroy everything we've worked for." Claudette paused. "She will ruin us, Roman. Remove her before she becomes a problem we can't fix." Footsteps. McKenna bolted from the hallway, barely making it to the kitchen before Claudette swept past. She pressed her back against the counter, breathing hard. Her mind raced. "Remove her. Ruin us. Problem. Have you ever heard someone talk about you like you're nothing? Like your existence is a threat that needs eliminating? If you have, drop a comment. Because that feeling, it stays with you." McKenna wanted to run, wanted to pack her bags and leave before Claudette made good on her threat. But where would she go? She had no savings, no backup plan, no one waiting for her. And worse, she loved Roman. God help her. She actually loved him. But love didn't protect you from people like Claudette Giovanni. Nothing did. Over the next few weeks, Claudette's surveillance intensified. She started showing up in rooms McKenna was cleaning. Not to inspect her work, just to stand there, watching. She'd make comments during staff meetings. Some people forget that loyalty is earned, not assumed. She'd ask McKenna questions that felt like traps. "How long do you plan to stay with us, McKenna?" And every time Roman wasn't around, Claudette's mask slipped just enough for McKenna to see the hatred underneath. McKenna didn't understand it at first. What had she done to earn this level of hostility? She wasn't stealing, wasn't causing problems, wasn't trying to take anything that didn't belong to her. But then, it hit her. Claudette wasn't afraid of what McKenna had done. She was afraid of what McKenna represented, a woman who didn't come from money or status or the right family, a woman who made Roman smile in ways Claudette couldn't control, a woman who reminded Roman that his mother didn't own him. And for someone like Claudette Giovanni, who built her entire life on control, that was unforgivable. So what exactly was Claudette planning to do to make sure McKenna disappeared? And how far would she go to protect the empire she believed McKenna threatened? McKenna stared at the pregnancy test on the bathroom counter, hands trembling so hard she had to grip the sink to steady herself. 2 pink lines. Pregnant. She wasn't scared. That's what surprised her most. She wasn't panicking or crying or wondering how this happened. She was hopeful, because maybe, just maybe, this baby could give them a future. Maybe Roman would see this as a sign that what they had was real, that she wasn't just a secret he kept in the dark. Maybe he'd choose her. McKenna spent the entire day rehearsing what she'd say. She practiced in front of the mirror while folding laundry, whispered the words while making his bed. "Roman, I'm pregnant. I know this is unexpected, but I think we can figure this out together." She'd smile when she said it. Keep her voice calm. Make sure he knew she wasn't trying to trap him or demand anything. Just tell him the truth and let him decide. By evening, her nerves were shot. Her heart pounded every time she heard footsteps, every time a door opened. Finally, she saw him. Roman was heading toward his office, phone pressed to his ear, talking about some business deal. McKenna took a deep breath and followed. She knocked softly on the office door. "Come in." She pushed the door open and froze. Claudette was inside, standing beside Roman's desk like a guard dog protecting its territory. Her eyes locked onto McKenna immediately, cold and sharp. "Yes?" Claudette said. McKenna's mouth went dry. "I'm sorry. I didn't know you were here. I can come back." "What do you need?" Roman asked, barely looking up from the papers in front of him. McKenna glanced at Claudette, then back at Roman. "It's nothing. I'll talk to you later." She backed out of the room before either of them could say anything else. Her chest felt tight. Her hands shook. Not now. Not like this. She'd have to wait. Find him alone. Tell him when Claudette wasn't hovering over him like a shadow. Hours passed. McKenna paced her small room trying to calm her racing thoughts. She checked the time. 11 p.m. Midnight. 1 a.m. Finally, she heard footsteps in the hallway. Roman. She slipped out of her room and found him heading toward the kitchen. He looked exhausted. Tie gone, shirt half unbuttoned, hair messy. "Roman," she whispered. He turned, surprised. Then his expression softened. "Hey, you're still awake. Can we talk?" He glanced down the hallway like he was checking if anyone was watching, then nodded. "Yeah, come on." They went to the library, the one place in the house that felt like theirs. Roman closed the door and turned to her. "What's wrong? You've been weird all day." McKenna's heart hammered. "Just say it. Just tell him." "Roman, I'm pregnant." The words hung in the air like a bomb waiting to explode. Roman stared at her, blinked, then stared some more. "What?" "I'm pregnant," McKenna repeated, softer this time. "I found out this morning." Roman took a step back, ran a hand through his hair. "You're sure?" "I took 3 tests." Silence. McKenna waited for him to say something. Anything. She searched his face for a smile, for relief, for some sign that this wasn't the worst news he'd ever heard. But all she saw was fear. Not fear of fatherhood, fear of his mother. Roman? Makina whispered. He finally looked at her, and the way he looked at her made her stomach drop, like she'd just ruined his life. Does anyone else know? He asked. Makina's chest tightened. No, just you. Good. Don't tell anyone. Not yet. What do you mean, not yet? I need time to think. Think about what? Roman didn't answer. He just paced the room, hands gripping the back of his neck like he was trying to hold himself together. Makina's hope started cracking. Roman, this is our baby. I know. Then why do you look like I just told you the worst thing in the world? Because my mother... He stopped, shook his head. You don't understand. She'll lose it. She'll what? Makina stepped closer. Roman, I'm not asking you to marry me. I'm not asking for money. I'm just telling you that we're having a baby. That's it. It's not that simple. Why not? He didn't answer, and that silence said everything. Makina felt something break inside her. You're scared of her. I'm not. Yes, you are. You're terrified of what she'll think, what she'll say, what she'll do. Makina's voice cracked. But what about what I need, what our baby needs? Roman looked at her, and for a second she saw the man she fell in love with, the one who held her in the dark and told her she mattered. But then the mask came back. I need time, he said again. Makina wanted to scream, wanted to shake him, wanted to ask when he became so weak. But she didn't. She just nodded and left the room before he could see her cry. Claudette found out 2 days later. Makina never figured out how. Maybe Roman told her. Maybe Claudette went through Makina's things. Maybe she just knew. But one morning Claudette cornered Makina in the hallway outside the laundry room. Is it true? Claudette asked. No greeting, no pretense. Makina's blood turned cold. Is what true? Don't play stupid. Are you pregnant? Makina's hands clenched. She wanted to lie, wanted to deny it. But something in Claudette's eyes told her it wouldn't matter. Yes. Claudette's face twisted with fury. You trapped him. I didn't. You got pregnant on purpose. To force your way into this family, to secure a paycheck. That's not true. Isn't it? Claudette stepped closer. You think I don't see what you're doing? You're just like every other gold digger who's tried to sink her claws into my son. But you made a mistake. You underestimated me. Makina's voice shook. I love him. Claudette laughed, actually laughed. Love? Girls like you don't know what love is. You know survival. You know opportunity. And you saw my son and thought you hit the jackpot. That's not... I will not let you destroy my family, Claudette hissed. Whatever you think is going to happen here, it won't. You will leave. Quietly. And you will not take a single thing from us. Tears burned Makina's eyes. What about Roman? What does he say? Claudette smiled. Cold. Cruel. Roman will do what I tell him. He always does. And the worst part? She was right. Because when Makina went to Roman that night, begging him to defend her, to stand up to his mother, to choose their baby over Claudette's control, he didn't say a word. He just looked at the floor, and Makina realized something that shattered her completely. Roman wasn't going to save her. He was going to let his mother destroy her. So why did Makina stay? What made her hold on when every sign told her to run? Makina should have left the day Roman refused to defend her. Should have packed her 2 suitcases and walked out of the Giovanni estate before Claudette could do whatever she was planning. But every time Makina thought about leaving, her baby kicked, and that tiny flutter inside her belly was enough to keep her fighting. She'd sit in her small room at night, hands pressed against her stomach, whispering promises she wasn't sure she could keep. Mama will protect you. I promise. No matter what happens, I won't let them hurt you. The baby would kick again, like she was listening, like she believed her, and Makina would cry. Not from fear, from determination. Because this baby deserved a chance. Deserved love. Deserved a mother who didn't give up just because the world was cruel. So Makina stayed. even when Claudette's coldness turned to ice. Even when Roman couldn't look her in the eye anymore. Even when every instinct screamed at her to run. Roman became two different people after Makina told him she was pregnant. In private, late at night when the house was asleep, he'd find her, touch her belly, whisper, "I'm sorry," like that fixed anything. He'd hold her and tell her he was scared, that he didn't know how to handle his mother, that he needed more time. And Makina, desperate and foolish, would let herself believe him. But the moment Claudette was around, Roman turned into a stranger. He'd walk past Makina in the hallway without acknowledging her, wouldn't meet her eyes during staff meetings, acted like she was invisible, like their baby didn't exist. It broke Makina every single time. Have you ever loved someone who was only brave when no one was watching? Someone who promised you everything in the dark, but disappeared in the light? That kind of love doesn't just hurt. It destroys you from the inside out. Claudette's cruelty grew sharper as Makina's belly grew rounder. She'd make comments during dinner parties when Makina served drinks. Careful, dear. Pregnancy does terrible things to women who aren't built for it. She'd inspect Makina's work with a magnifying glass, finding flaws that didn't exist. Your standards are slipping. Perhaps the strain is too much for you. And once, when Makina was cleaning the upstairs hallway and Claudette thought no one else was listening, she said something that made Makina's blood run cold. Even your child will suffer from low breeding. No amount of money can fix that. Makina froze, dustcloth still in her hand. Claudette noticed her and smiled, not warmly, like a predator who just cornered its prey. Did I say something wrong? Makina swallowed the lump in her throat. No, ma'am. Good. Then get back to work. Makina wanted to scream. Wanted to tell Claudette exactly what she thought of her and her twisted values, but she didn't, because she had a baby to protect, and making Claudette angrier would only make things worse, so she kept her head down, kept cleaning, kept surviving. One day at a time. The breaking point came on a cold November evening. Makina was passing by Claudette's study when she heard voices. Low, urgent. She shouldn't have stopped, shouldn't have listened, but something in Claudette's tone made her freeze. Once the baby is born, Claudette said, we remove her from the house. Makina's heart stopped. Another voice responded. A man's. Probably the family attorney. And the child? The child stays. Silence. Makina pressed herself against the wall, hand over her mouth to keep from gasping. They were talking about taking her baby. You can't just take a child from its mother, the attorney said carefully. There are laws. Laws can be managed, Claudette replied. Money has a way of solving legal problems, and once Makina is gone, the child will be raised properly. As a Giovanni, not as the offspring of some gold-digging maid. What if she fights? Claudette laughed. With what? She has no money, no family, no legal standing. Who's going to help her? Makina's knees went weak. She slid down the wall, sitting on the floor, trying to process what she just heard. They were going to take her baby. Remove her from the house. Raise her daughter as their own. Erase Makina from her child's life like she never existed. And Roman? Roman was probably in on it, or worse, too weak to stop it. Makina sat there in the hallway for what felt like hours, hands pressed against her belly, trying to breathe through the panic. Her baby kicked, strong, defiant, like she was saying, "Fight, Mama, don't give up." And something inside Makina shifted. She wasn't going to let them win. She didn't know how. Didn't know where she'd go or what she'd do, but she wasn't going to let Claudette Giovanni steal her daughter. Over the next few weeks, Makina started planning. She hid small amounts of money from her paycheck, saved every dollar she could. She researched shelters, legal aid, organizations that helped women in situations like hers. She stopped talking to Roman, stopped hoping he'd change, stopped waiting for him to grow a spine, because hope was dangerous. Hope made you stay when you should run. And McKenna didn't have time for hope anymore. She had a baby to protect. But Claudette was watching her more closely now, like she knew McKenna was planning something. One morning, Claudette cornered her in the kitchen. "You're quieter than usual," Claudette said, pouring herself coffee. "Planning something?" McKenna kept her face neutral. "No, ma'am, just tired." Claudette studied her. "You know, I've been thinking. After the baby is born, perhaps it's best if you take some time off. Rest. Recover." McKenna's pulse quickened. "I'll be fine." "I insist." Claudette's smile was sharp. "We'll arrange everything. Make sure you're comfortable, far from here." There it was. The plan. Wrapped in false kindness, McKenna forced herself to nod. "Thank you." But inside, she was screaming. That night, McKenna sat in her room, staring at the small bag she'd packed. Just the essentials. Clothes for her and the baby. The letters from her mother. The little money she'd saved. She didn't know when she'd leave, but she knew she had to. Before Claudette made her move. Before they took her baby. Before it was too late. But 3 weeks later, before McKenna could execute any plan, before she could disappear into the night, her water broke. 3 weeks early. On the kitchen floor, and the only person she could think to call was Roman. The man who'd already chosen his mother over her. The man who was about to let Claudette destroy her life. But what McKenna didn't know was that hundreds of miles away, someone had just found a letter. A letter that would change everything, and that someone was already on their way. The pain hit McKenna like lightning, splitting her body in half. She was standing in the Giovanni kitchen, chopping vegetables for dinner, when she felt it. A sharp, wet release. Then warmth spreading down her legs. Her water had broken. 3 weeks early. McKenna grabbed the counter, gasping. "No, not now. Please, not now." Another contraction ripped through her, stronger this time. McKenna's knees buckled. She fumbled for her phone with shaking hands and dialed Roman. Ring, ring, ring. Voicemail. "Roman, please, I'm in labor. I need you. Please call me back." She hung up and tried again. Ring, ring, ring. Voicemail. Panic clawed at McKenna's throat. She pressed a hand to her stomach, breathing hard. "It's okay, baby. We're okay. Mama's got you." But she didn't have anyone. Another contraction hit. McKenna cried out, gripping the counter so hard her knuckles went white. The house driver, Marcus, rushed into the kitchen. "Miss McKenna, what's wrong?" "The baby," she gasped. "I'm in labor." Marcus didn't hesitate. "Come on, I'll take you to the hospital." He helped her to the car, and McKenna collapsed into the back seat, trembling. Every bump in the road sent fresh waves of pain through her body. She called Roman again. No answer. "Where is he?" she whispered, tears streaming down her face. Why won't he answer? Marcus glanced at her in the rearview mirror, sympathy in his eyes. "Just breathe, Miss McKenna. We're almost there." They arrived at the hospital 15 minutes later. Nurses rushed out with a wheelchair. Someone checked her vitals. Someone else asked her questions she barely heard. "How far apart are the contractions?" 3 minutes. "Who's your emergency contact?" "Roman Giovanni." "Is he on his way?" McKenna's voice cracked. "I don't know." They wheeled her into a private delivery room. The nurses moved efficiently, hooking her up to monitors, checking her dilation, prepping for delivery. "You're at 6 centimeters, one nurse said gently. "It's moving fast. Baby's ready." McKenna nodded, but she wasn't listening. She kept staring at her phone, willing it to ring. It didn't. An hour passed, then 2. Contractions came faster, harder. McKenna screamed through each one, gripping the bed rails like they were the only thing keeping her alive. A nurse with kind eyes held her hand. "You're doing great, sweetheart. Just breathe." "Has he called?" McKenna gasped between contractions. The nurse checked her phone, shook her head. "No, honey. I'm sorry. McKenna's chest heaved, not from pain, from heartbreak. Roman wasn't coming, the father of her child, the man she loved, the man who whispered promises in the dark. He wasn't coming. Push, McKenna, the doctor said. You're at 9 centimeters, almost there. McKenna pushed. Tears streamed down her face, not just from the pain, from the crushing realization that she was doing this alone. No hand to hold, no voice telling her she was strong, no one, just her and the baby she'd fought so hard to protect. Time blurred, minutes felt like hours felt like lifetimes, and then, just when McKenna thought she couldn't take another second, the door swung open. Roman. McKenna's heart leaped. Relief flooded her chest. Roman. But then she saw her, Alessia, walking in behind Roman, dressed in a sleek black dress and heels, makeup perfect, hair styled like she was attending a gala, not a delivery room, and she was holding Roman's hand. McKenna's breath caught. What? Roman let go of Alessia's hand and stepped forward. His face was cold, unreadable, like he was attending a business meeting, not the birth of his daughter. McKenna, he said, flat, emotionless. McKenna stared at him, then at Alessia, then back at him. Why is she here? Alessia smiled, not warm, not kind, triumphant. McKenna's vision blurred. Another contraction hit, but this pain was different. This wasn't physical. This was betrayal ripping her apart from the inside. Roman, what is this? McKenna's voice cracked. He didn't answer. The door opened again, and Claudette Giovanni swept in like she owned the room. Diamonds glittering, expression ice cold. She glanced at McKenna on the hospital bed, then at the monitors, then back at Roman. Good, Claudette said. You're here. Let's get this over with. McKenna's heart pounded. Get what over with? Claudette turned to her, and the look in her eyes made McKenna's blood freeze. Roman has something to tell you. Roman stepped closer, pulled a folded document from his jacket pocket, dropped it on McKenna's stomach. Right there, while she was in labor. While machines beeped and nurses watched and her daughter was minutes away from being born. You're done, McKenna, Roman said. Sign it. McKenna's hands shook. What is this? Termination papers, Claudette said. You're no longer employed by the Giovanni family. Effective immediately. The room spun. McKenna couldn't breathe. You're firing me? Now? There's also a severance agreement, Roman added. His voice was mechanical, like he'd rehearsed this. You'll receive enough money to start over, somewhere else. Somewhere else? McKenna's voice broke. I'm about to have your baby. Alessia stepped forward, wrapping her arm around Roman's. We're building a life together, McKenna. A clean life. No scandals, no complications. McKenna stared at her, then at Roman. Complications? Is that what our daughter is to you? Roman didn't answer. He just looked at the floor. Claudette's smile was sharp. Girls like you don't end up with men like my son. You were convenient. Now you're not. Another contraction tore through McKenna. She gasped, gripping the rails. The nurse rushed over. You need to leave. All of you. She's about to deliver. We'll wait outside, Claudette said smoothly. Let us know when it's over. When it's over. Like this was a transaction. Like their daughter was paperwork. Roman turned toward the door. Alessia followed, heels clicking. Claudette lingered a moment longer, looking down at McKenna like she was dirt. You should have known better, she whispered. Then she left too. The door closed, and McKenna was alone, except for the nurses who looked at her with pity, and the doctor who told her to push, and the baby inside her who deserved so much better than this. But what none of them knew, not Roman, not Claudette, not Alessia, was that at that exact moment, 3,000 miles away in New York City, an attorney was stepping onto a plane. with a briefcase full of documents that would destroy the Giovannis, and a letter that proved McKenna wasn't just some maid they could erase. She was a billionaire, and she owned everything they thought was theirs. McKenna couldn't stop staring at Alessia, at her perfect hair, her designer dress, her flawless makeup. Why was she dressed like that? Why was she here at all? This wasn't a business dinner. This wasn't a party. This was a hospital room, a delivery room, and Alessia looked like she belonged on a magazine cover. McKenna's mind raced, trying to make sense of it, trying to understand why the woman who'd smiled at her during dinner parties was now standing beside Roman like she owned him, like McKenna was the outsider. Another contraction hit. McKenna screamed, gripping the bed rails. The nurse rushed over. "You're at 9 centimeters. The baby's coming soon." But McKenna wasn't thinking about the baby anymore. She was thinking about the way Alessia's hand had been wrapped around Roman's, the way Claudette stood behind them like a general watching her plan unfold, the way Roman refused to look at her. "Roman," McKenna gasped. "Why is she here?" Roman's jaw tightened. "McKenna, we need to talk." "Talk?" McKenna's voice cracked. "I'm about to have your baby and you want to talk?" Claudette stepped forward, adjusting her diamond necklace. "Do it now, Roman. End this nonsense before the child arrives." "And what?" McKenna's chest tightened. "Roman, what is she talking about?" Roman reached into his jacket and pulled out a thick envelope. He didn't hand it to her gently. He dropped it on her stomach, right on top of her swollen belly, where their daughter was, seconds away from being born. McKenna stared at the envelope, then at him. "What is this?" "Termination papers," Roman said. His voice was flat, cold, like he was firing a stranger, not the mother of his child. McKenna's world tilted. "You're firing me? Now? You're no longer employed by the Giovanni family. Effective immediately." The words didn't make sense. McKenna shook her head. "Roman, I'm having our baby. That doesn't change anything," Claudette cut in. "You were hired as staff. You're being let go as staff. Simple." McKenna's hands trembled. "This isn't about a job. This is about our daughter." "There is no hour," Alessia said, stepping closer. Her voice was smooth, confident, like she'd been waiting for this moment. "Roman and I are building a life together, a clean life. No scandals, no complications." McKenna stared at her. "Complications? My baby is a complication?" Alessia smiled, not warmly, victoriously. "Your baby is unfortunate timing, but it doesn't have to define Roman's future." McKenna's vision blurred, not from pain, from rage. She looked at Roman, really looked at him, searching for the man who held her at midnight, the man who whispered that she mattered. But all she saw was a coward. "You're really doing this?" McKenna whispered. "You're really going to let them do this to me?" Roman finally met her eyes, and for a split second she saw guilt, shame, regret. But then he looked away, and that look away said everything. "Sign the papers, McKenna," Roman said quietly. "There's a severance package, enough to start over somewhere else." "Somewhere else," McKenna repeated. Her voice was hollow. "You want me to disappear? We want you to move on," Claudette said. "For everyone's sake." Another contraction tore through McKenna. She gasped, tears streaming down her face. The nurse stepped between them, furious. "All of you need to leave. Now. She's about to deliver." "We'll wait outside," Claudette said smoothly. She turned to Roman. "Let's go." Roman hesitated, just for a second, like maybe, just maybe, he'd stay. But then Alessia touched his arm. "Come on, baby. Let the doctors handle this." "Baby." She called him baby. McKenna's heart shattered. Roman turned and walked toward the door. Alessia followed, heels clicking against the tile. Claudette lingered, looking down at McKenna one last time. "You should have known your place," she said softly. "Girls like you don't get happy endings with men like my son." Then she left. The door closed, and McKenna was alone. Alone with nurses who looked at her with pity. Alone with monitors that beeped too loud. Alone with a pain that wasn't just physical. Have you ever been humiliated at your lowest moment? When you needed someone most and they walked away? If you have, you know that kind of betrayal doesn't just hurt, it changes you. McKenna pushed, screamed, cried through every contraction. But somewhere between the pain and the heartbreak, something inside her shifted. She wasn't crying from despair anymore. She was crying from rage. Roman thought he could erase her. Claudette thought she could remove her like trash. Alessia thought she'd won. But they were all wrong, because McKenna wasn't done fighting. Not for Roman, not for the Giovannis, not for any of them, for her daughter, the baby who kicked inside her, the baby who deserved better than a father who abandoned her before she was even born. McKenna gripped the bed rails and pushed harder. "That's it," the nurse encouraged. "One more push, you're almost there," McKenna screamed, and then a cry, sharp, beautiful, alive. The nurse lifted the baby and McKenna's world stopped. Her daughter, tiny, perfect, crying loud enough to shake the room. The nurse placed her on McKenna's chest and McKenna sobbed, but not from pain, from love, pure, overwhelming, unbreakable love. "Hi, baby," McKenna whispered, kissing her daughter's forehead. "Mama's got you. I promise. No one's ever going to hurt you." The baby's cries softened, like she recognized her mother's voice. McKenna held her close, tears streaming down her face. Outside that room, Roman, Claudette, and Alicia were probably celebrating. Probably planning how to erase McKenna from their lives, but they had no idea what was coming. Because at that exact moment, 3,000 miles away in New York City, Attorney Samuel Bray was sitting in his office, staring at a file he'd just found. A file marked, "McKenna Hayes. Confidential. Do not open until birth." Samuel's hands shook as he read the contents. A will, bank statements, property deeds, ownership documents, and a handwritten letter from a man named Caleb Hayes. "Find my granddaughter, McKenna Hayes. The moment she gives birth, she inherits everything. $2 billion. And more importantly, controlling ownership of Giovanni International Holdings." Samuel's jaw dropped. He checked the timestamp on McKenna's hospital records. She'd just given birth. 15 minutes ago. He grabbed his phone and dialed his assistant. "Book me the next flight to Los Angeles. I don't care what it costs. I need to get there tonight." "What's the emergency?" Samuel looked at the file again. At the signatures, at the bank trails, at the proof that Caleb Hayes hadn't just saved the Giovanni family decades ago. He'd owned them. And now, his granddaughter did. "The emergency," Samuel said slowly, "is that McKenna Hayes doesn't know she's a billionaire. And the people who just humiliated her, they have no idea they just made the biggest mistake of their lives." He hung up, grabbed his briefcase, and headed for the door. Because by tomorrow morning, McKenna wasn't going to be the maid anymore. She was going to be the woman who owned everything Roman thought was his. Samuel Bray had been a corporate attorney for 32 years, and he'd seen a lot of secrets hidden in sealed envelopes. But nothing prepared him for what he found in Caleb Hayes' file. The leather envelope sat on his desk like a bomb waiting to explode. It had been locked in a vault for 3 decades, with explicit instructions written on the front in faded ink. Do not open until McKenna Hayes gives birth. Not a day before, not a day after. Samuel had received the notification that morning, a call from the estate executor, a timestamp from a hospital in California. McKenna Hayes had given birth at 4:47 p.m. Pacific time, which meant Samuel could finally open the envelope. His hands shook as he broke the wax seal. Inside was a single handwritten letter on aged paper. The handwriting was shaky but deliberate, the words of a man who knew his time was running out. Samuel read it once, then read it again. then sat back in his chair, stunned. Find my granddaughter, Makina Hayes. The moment she gives birth, release her inheritance. She is the rightful owner of everything I have built. $2 billion in liquid assets, properties in New York, Boston, Seattle, and Silicon Valley, and most importantly, controlling ownership of Giovanni International Holdings. She owns them. She always has. They just don't know it yet. Samuel's jaw clenched. Giovanni International Holdings. He knew that name. Every corporate attorney in the country knew that name. It was one of the largest hotel and resort empires in North America, billions in annual revenue, a family dynasty that controlled half of California's luxury real estate. And according to this letter, Caleb Hayes had secretly owned it for decades. Samuel pulled up his computer and started digging. Property records, bank statements, corporate filings, everything Caleb Hayes had meticulously documented and locked away. The deeper Samuel went, the more the picture came together. In 1987, the Giovanni family was drowning, bad investments, crushing debt, weeks away from bankruptcy. Caleb Hayes had stepped in, quietly, discreetly. He'd bought their debt, restructured their business, and saved them from ruin. But he didn't do it for free. In exchange, Caleb took 51% ownership, silent ownership. The Giovannis could run the company, keep their name on the buildings, maintain their public image. But legally, Caleb owned them. And when Caleb died 2 years ago, that ownership transferred to a trust designed to activate the moment his granddaughter gave birth. Samuel's pulse quickened. Makina Hayes wasn't just inheriting money. She was inheriting power, control over one of the wealthiest families in California. The ability to make decisions, fire executives, restructure the entire empire. And based on the hospital records Samuel was now pulling up, Makina had been working as a maid for the Giovanni family. A maid, in the house she technically owned. Samuel's blood boiled. He picked up his phone and called his assistant. I need everything you can find on Makina Hayes, current address, employment history, any legal issues. I need it in the next 10 minutes. On it. Samuel hung up and stared at the letter again. Caleb Hayes had written one more line at the bottom, something that made Samuel's chest tighten. If my granddaughter is in trouble, if the Giovannis have hurt her, make sure she knows the truth. Make sure she understands that she doesn't owe them anything. They owe her everything. 10 minutes later, Samuel's assistant walked in with a file. Here's what I found. Makina Hayes, 26 years old. Last known address, Giovanni Estate, La Jolla, California. Employed as live-in staff. No criminal record, no debt. But, she paused. But what? She gave birth at Scripps Memorial Hospital in La Jolla, alone. No father listed on the birth certificate. And according to the hospital staff I spoke with, she was in distress when she arrived. Like she'd been abandoned. Samuel's jaw tightened. Abandoned by who? I don't know. But the Giovannis were there, at the hospital, Roman Giovanni specifically. Samuel's eyes narrowed. Roman Giovanni. Caleb's letter had mentioned him, the heir to the empire, the man who thought he controlled everything. Samuel stood up and grabbed his briefcase. Book me, the next flight to Los Angeles. I don't care what it costs. When do you want to leave? Now. His assistant blinked. It's almost midnight. I don't care. Get me on a plane. Tonight. She nodded and left. Samuel paced his office, mind racing. He'd handled complicated estates before, family drama, inheritance disputes. But this was different. This wasn't just about money. This was about justice. Because if what he suspected was true, the Giovannis had treated Makina like she was nothing, like she was disposable, like she didn't matter, and they had no idea that the woman they humiliated owned everything they thought was theirs. Samuel pulled up the corporate records one more time, scanned the ownership documents, the signatures, the bank trails. Everything was airtight, ironclad, legal. Makina Hayes owned 51% of Giovanni International Holdings, which meant she could fire Roman, remove Claudette from the board, restructure the entire company, sell it, shut it down. She had the power to do whatever she wanted, and Samuel was going to make sure she knew it. 2 hours later, Samuel was sitting on a red-eye flight to Los Angeles, briefcase on his lap, staring out the window at the dark sky. He thought about Makina, about what she must be feeling right now, exhausted, heartbroken, probably terrified about how she was going to raise a baby alone. She had no idea that help was coming, that her grandfather had built an empire to protect her, that she was about to become one of the most powerful women in California. Samuel's phone buzzed, a message from his assistant. Hospital confirmed Makana Hayes is still there. Room 304. She's scheduled to be discharged tomorrow morning. Samuel typed back, "Make sure she doesn't leave before I get there. I don't care what it takes." He leaned back in his seat and closed his eyes. By tomorrow morning, everything was going to change. For Makena, for the Giovannis, for everyone who thought they could control her. Because Samuel Bray had spent 3 decades making sure powerful people didn't get away with hurting the powerless, and he wasn't about to stop now. But as the plane cut through the night sky, racing toward California, one question burned in Samuel's mind. Would he reach Makena before the Giovannis made their next move? Or was he already too late? Makena's scream tore through the delivery room like something primal and desperate. The monitors beeped faster. The nurses moved with urgency. The doctor positioned herself at the foot of the bed. "One more push, Makena. She's almost here." Makena pushed with everything she had left. Her body burned, her vision blurred. Sweat poured down her face. And outside the delivery room, in the waiting area, Roman sat scrolling through his phone. Claudette stood by the window, checking her watch like she had somewhere more important to be. Alessia reapplied her lipstick in a compact mirror, smiling at her reflection. None of them moved toward the door. None of them asked how Makena was doing. None of them cared. Inside the room, Makena gripped the bed rails so hard her knuckles turned white. "Push," the doctor urged. Makena screamed again, louder this time, like her body was splitting in half, and then a cry, sharp, fierce, beautiful, the sound of life entering the world. Makena collapsed back against the pillows, gasping for air. Her chest heaved, her vision swam, but then the nurse lifted the baby. Tiny, perfect, crying loud enough to shake the walls. "It's a girl," the nurse said softly. Makena's heart exploded. A girl, her daughter. The nurse wiped the baby clean and placed her on Makena's chest, warm, soft, alive. Makena sobbed, not from pain, from love so overwhelming it hurt. She wrapped her arms around her daughter, holding her close. "Hi, baby. I'm your mama. I've got you. I promise. I'll protect you. Always." The baby's cries softened, like she recognized her mother's voice, like she knew she was safe. Makena kissed her forehead, her tiny hands, her perfect little face. If you've ever held your child for the first time, you know that feeling. That moment when the entire world stops and nothing else matters. Not the pain, not the fear, not the people who hurt you. Just that tiny heartbeat against your chest. Share this if you've felt that love. The door opened. Makena looked up, tears still streaming down her face. Roman walked in, slowly, like he wasn't sure he belonged there. Claudette followed, expression cold, arms crossed. Alessia stayed by the door, watching like this was a performance she didn't want to miss. Makena stared at Roman, waiting, hoping, praying that seeing his daughter would change something in him. "She's beautiful," Makena whispered. Roman stopped a few feet from the bed. He glanced at the baby, then at Makena, then at the floor. He didn't step closer, didn't reach for his daughter, didn't smile. "Roman," Makena said softly, "do you want to hold her?" Silence. Claudette cleared her throat. "Roman, the papers." Makena's chest tightened. "What?" Roman pulled the termination documents from his jacket again, the same ones he'd dropped on her stomach earlier. "You need to sign these, Makena." McKenna stared at him. Are you serious right now? Sign them, Claudette said sharply, so we can all move on. McKenna looked down at her daughter, at her tiny hands gripping McKenna's finger, at her eyes struggling to open, at the perfect little life she'd just brought into the world. And then she looked back at Roman. No, Claudette's eyes flashed. Excuse me? I'm not signing anything, McKenna said. Her voice was steady now, stronger. This is my daughter, and I'm not giving her up. I'm not leaving, and I'm not letting you erase me. Claudette laughed, cold, mocking. You don't have a choice. Yes, I do. Really? Claudette stepped closer. And what exactly do you think you can do? You have no money, no family, no lawyer. You're a maid, McKenna. A maid who made a mistake. McKenna's hands shook, but she didn't look away. She's not a mistake. Maybe not, Claudette said. But you are. She turned to the nurse. Once she's recovered, make sure the child is handed over to family services. We'll arrange proper care. McKenna's blood went cold. You can't take my baby. Watch me. Roman, McKenna pleaded, don't let her do this. Please, she's your daughter. Roman finally looked at her, and for a split second, McKenna saw guilt, shame, regret, but then he turned to his mother. What do you want me to do? Claudette's smile was razor sharp. Remove the child after she signs. If she refuses, we'll handle it legally. McKenna's vision blurred. They were really going to do this. They were going to take her baby. She held her daughter tighter, crying harder. You can't do this. We can, Claudette said, and we will. Alessia stepped forward, voice sweet and condescending. It's for the best, McKenna. You can't give her the life she deserves, but we can. McKenna wanted to scream, wanted to fight, but she was exhausted, broken, alone. And then the door swung open. Everyone turned. A man stepped inside, tall, mid-50s, wearing a sharp suit and carrying a leather briefcase. He looked at McKenna, then at Roman, then at Claudette. Ms. Hayes? He asked. McKenna blinked. Yes? My name is Samuel Bray. I'm an attorney from New York. I represent your grandfather's estate. Roman groaned. Now is not the time. Samuel held up a hand. Actually, this is exactly the time. He pulled a document from his briefcase and handed it to Roman. Roman took it, frowning, started reading, and then his face went pale, very pale. What is this? Roman whispered. Samuel turned to McKenna, voice calm but firm. Ms. Hayes, as of 4:47 p.m. today, you became the legal owner of $2 billion in assets, properties across New York, Boston, Seattle, and Silicon Valley. McKenna stared at him. What? But more importantly, Samuel continued, you now hold controlling ownership, 51% of Giovanni International Holdings. The room went silent. Claudette's face drained of color. That's impossible. Samuel handed her a second document. Your family was saved from bankruptcy in 1987 by Caleb Hayes. In exchange, he took controlling ownership, silent ownership. You were allowed to run the company, but legally, he owned it. And now, Ms. Hayes does. Alicia gasped. Roman stumbled back. Claudette stared at the papers like they were written in a language she didn't understand. Samuel turned back to McKenna, his expression softening. Your grandfather spent 30 years protecting you. And now, Ms. Hayes, you don't need anyone's permission to keep your daughter. McKenna's breath caught. She looked down at her baby, then at Roman, then at Claudette. And for the first time since walking into the Giovanni estate, McKenna smiled. Not from hope, from power. Get out, McKenna said quietly. Claudette's jaw dropped. You can't. I said get out. McKenna's voice was steel now. All of you. This is my hospital room, my daughter, and apparently, my company. Roman opened his mouth, closed it, looked at his mother. Claudette's hands shook. This isn't over. Yes, McKenna said. It is. Samuel stepped aside, holding the door open. And one by one, Roman, Claudette, and Alessia left. The door closed, and McKenna was finally, truly, alone with her daughter. She looked down at the tiny face pressed against her chest and whispered, "Mama's got you, baby, and no one's ever going to hurt us again." But outside that room, Claudette was already making a phone call, and the war for the Giovanni empire had only just begun. Samuel Bray stood in the doorway like he carried the weight of justice itself. His suit was perfectly pressed, his briefcase leather and expensive, his expression calm but deadly serious. He looked at McKenna first, then at the baby in her arms, then at Roman, Claudette, and Alessia standing by the bed like vultures circling prey. "Ms. Hayes?" Samuel asked. McKenna blinked, still holding her daughter close. "Yes?" "My name is Samuel Bray. I'm a corporate attorney from New York. I represent your grandfather's estate." Roman groaned. "This isn't the time." "Actually," Samuel cut him off, voice sharp, "this is exactly the time." He reached into his briefcase and pulled out a thick document, handed it directly to Roman. Roman took it, frowning, started reading. His eyes moved across the page. Once, twice, then his face drained of all color. "What is this?" Roman whispered. Samuel's expression didn't change. "That, Mr. Giovanni, is proof that your family has been living a lie for 37 years. Claudette stepped forward, snatching the document from Roman's hands. "What are you talking about?" Samuel turned to her. "In 1987, your family was drowning in debt. Bankruptcy was 2 weeks away. Your hotels were being foreclosed. Your reputation was about to collapse." Claudette's jaw tightened. "That's an ancient history." "Ancient history that you've conveniently forgotten," Samuel said. "Caleb Hayes saved you. He bought your debt, restructured your business, gave you a lifeline when no one else would." "He was a business partner," Claudette snapped. "Nothing more." Samuel smiled. Cold. "No, Mrs. Giovanni. He was your owner." Silence. Roman stared at Samuel like he'd just spoken a different language. "What?" Samuel pulled out a second document, then a third, then a fourth. Spread them across the hospital bed tray like he was presenting evidence in court. "Caleb Hayes didn't just save your family. He took 51% ownership of Giovanni International Holdings in exchange. Silent ownership. You could run the company, keep your name on the buildings, and maintain your public image. But legally, every decision, every expansion, every dollar, it belonged to him." Claudette's hands trembled. "That's impossible." "It's documented," Samuel said. "Signed, notarized, filed with the SEC. I have 37 years of corporate records proving it." Roman grabbed the papers, scanned them. His breathing got faster, shallower. "Why didn't we know?" Roman asked. "Because your grandfather made a deal," Samuel said. Caleb would stay silent. "Let you run the empire, as long as you honored the original agreement. But the moment he died, ownership transferred to a trust designed to activate when his granddaughter gave birth." Samuel turned to McKenna. "Ms. Hayes, as of 4:47 p.m. Pacific Time today, you became the legal owner of $2 billion in liquid assets, properties in New York, Boston, Seattle, and Silicon Valley, and most importantly, controlling ownership of Giovanni International Holdings." McKenna's breath caught. "What?" "You own 51% of this company," Samuel said clearly. "Which means every decision they make requires your approval. Every board meeting needs your vote. Every executive they hire or fire, you have final say." Alessia gasped. Claudette stumbled backward. Roman's jaw trembled. McKenna stared at Samuel, then at the documents, then at her baby. "I don't understand," she whispered. Samuel's expression softened. "Your grandfather spent his entire life protecting you. He knew your mother was in danger. He knew you'd need security. So he built an empire. Not for himself. For you." Tears filled McKenna's eyes, not from sadness, from disbelief. "I own this?" she asked. "You own them," Samuel corrected. He looked at Roman, at Claudette, at Alessia. Every hotel, every resort, every asset they thought was theirs? Legally, it belongs to Ms. Hayes. Claudette's face twisted with fury. This is ridiculous. We've run this company for decades, and you'll continue to run it, Samuel said, if Ms. Hayes allows it. The words hung in the air like a guillotine. McKenna looked at Roman, the man who'd just tried to fire her, the man who'd refused to hold his daughter, the man who'd stood by while his mother threatened to take her baby. And now? Now he needed her permission to keep his empire. Roman opened his mouth, closed it, looked at his mother like he didn't know what to do. Claudette stepped forward, voice low and venomous. You can't do this. I'm not doing anything, McKenna said quietly. Your family did this when they took my grandfather's money and forgot where it came from. Alessia's voice was shrill. This is insane. She's a maid. She was a maid, Samuel corrected. Now she's a billionaire. And your boss. Alessia's mouth snapped shut. McKenna held her daughter tighter. Her mind raced. This couldn't be real. She'd spent the last year cleaning their floors, serving their meals, being invisible, and the whole time she'd owned everything they thought was theirs. Why didn't my grandfather tell me? McKenna asked. Samuel's expression softened. He wanted to, but he knew that if people found out too soon, they'd try to control you, manipulate you, use you. So he waited, until you were strong enough to handle it. Strong enough? You just gave birth alone, Samuel said gently. You were fired in a delivery room, humiliated, threatened, and you didn't break. That's strength, Ms. Hayes, the kind your grandfather knew you'd need. McKenna's chest tightened. She looked down at her daughter, at the tiny face pressed against her. Her mother used to say she was meant for something big. Maybe this was it. So, what happens now? McKenna asked. Samuel pulled out one more document. That depends on you. You can sell your shares. Walk away with $2 billion and never see the Giovannis again. Claudette's eyes lit up with hope. Or, Samuel continued, you can take your seat at the table. Control the company, make the decisions, ensure that people like the Giovannis never treat anyone the way they treated you. McKenna looked at Roman, at Claudette, at Alessia. They stared back at her with fear, desperation, shock. Good. I want to see the company, McKenna said. Tomorrow. Samuel smiled. I'll arrange it. Claudette's voice shook. McKenna, please, let's talk about this. We can work something out. Get out, McKenna said. Excuse me? I said get out. McKenna's voice was calm, steady, powerful. This is my hospital room, my daughter, and apparently my company, so get out. Roman took a step forward. McKenna, please. Don't. McKenna's eyes were ice. You had your chance to stand by me. You chose her. She looked at Claudette. So now, you live with that choice. Samuel held the door open, and slowly, one by one, Roman, Claudette, and Alicia left. The door closed. McKenna exhaled. Her hands shook. Her heart pounded. Samuel sat down beside her bed. Are you okay? McKenna looked at him, then at her daughter. I don't know. That's fair, Samuel said. But there's one more thing you need to know. McKenna's stomach dropped. What? Samuel opened his briefcase one more time, pulled out a sealed envelope. Your grandfather left you a letter. He wanted you to read it after you found out the truth. McKenna stared at the envelope. Her hands trembled as she took it. What does it say? Samuel stood. I don't know. But whatever it is, it's something he needed you to hear. He walked toward the door, paused, looked back. For what it's worth, Ms. Hayes, your grandfather would be proud of you. Then he left. McKenna sat alone in the quiet hospital room, holding her daughter in one arm and the letter in the other, and when she finally opened it, The first line made her blood run cold. "McKenna, if you're reading this, it means the Giovannis tried to destroy you. And now, it's time you knew the real reason why." McKenna's hands trembled as she read her grandfather's letter. "If you're reading this, it means the Giovannis tried to destroy you. And now, it's time you knew the real reason why." Her heart pounded. Her daughter slept peacefully against her chest, unaware that their entire world had just shifted. McKenna kept reading. "The Giovannis didn't just owe me money, McKenna. They owed me everything, every hotel they built, every resort they expanded, every success they claimed as their own. I funded it, I structured it, I made them who they are, and they've spent 37 years pretending I didn't exist." McKenna's breath caught. "But you were always the end game. The moment you were born, I knew you'd be the one to reclaim what's ours. Not out of greed, out of justice. Because people like the Giovannis need to be reminded that power built on someone else's foundation can be taken away." Tears blurred McKenna's vision. She wiped them away and kept reading. "Don't let them intimidate you. Don't let them make you feel small. You are a Hayes, and that name means something. It always has." The letter ended with one final line. "Make them remember who really built their empire, and make sure they never forget." McKenna folded the letter carefully. Her chest felt tight. Her mind raced. Her grandfather hadn't just saved the Giovannis. He'd owned them. And now she did. The next morning, Samuel arrived at the hospital with a folder twice as thick as the first one. McKenna was dressed. Her daughter was bundled in a soft pink blanket. And for the first time in months, McKenna felt like she could breathe. "Ready?" Samuel asked. "For what?" "To see exactly how deep this goes." He opened the second folder and spread documents across the hospital bed. Bank statements, property deeds, corporate filings, construction contracts. Every single one had Caleb Hayes' signature at the bottom. "Your grandfather didn't just save the Giovannis from bankruptcy," Samuel said. "He funded every expansion they made for the next 3 decades. The hotel in Miami, he paid for it. The resort in Aspen, he financed it. The luxury properties in San Francisco, all him." McKenna stared at the documents. Why would he do that? "Because he believed in building something that would last," Samuel said. "He wanted to create generational wealth. Not for himself, for you." He pulled out another document. This one had the Giovanni family crest at the top. "This is the original agreement," Samuel explained. "Signed in 1987. Caleb Hayes takes 51% ownership in exchange for clearing their debt and funding future expansions. The Giovannis get to run the company, but all major decisions require approval from the majority shareholder." "My grandfather," McKenna whispered. "And now you." Samuel handed her another stack of papers. "These are the corporate records for the last 37 years. Every hotel opening, every board meeting, every financial decision. Your grandfather approved all of it, quietly, from behind the scenes." McKenna's hand shook as she flipped through the pages. Signatures, contracts, approvals, all bearing her grandfather's name. "They knew," McKenna said slowly. "The Giovannis knew he owned them." "They knew," Samuel confirmed, "but they thought when he died, the ownership would dissolve. Or that it would be tied up in legal battles for years. They didn't expect a trust, and they definitely didn't expect you." McKenna looked at her daughter, then at the documents, then at Samuel. "So what does this mean?" Samuel smiled. "It means you own 51% of Giovanni International Holdings, which means you control the board. You approve executives. You decide what properties get built and which ones get sold. Roman, Claudette, everyone in that family, they work for you now." McKenna's chest tightened. She'd spent the last year scrubbing their floors, serving their meals, being treated like she didn't matter, and the whole time she'd been their boss. "What if they fight me?" McKenna asked. "They can try," Samuel said, "but the law is on your side. The contracts are ironclad, and more importantly, you have something they don't." "What?" "The truth." A knock on the door interrupted them. McKenna looked up. "Come in." The door opened slowly. Roman stepped inside, alone. No Claudette, no Alessia, just him. He looked exhausted. His suit was wrinkled, his eyes red like he hadn't slept. "McKenna," he said quietly, "can we talk?" Samuel stood. "I'll give you a moment." He left, closing the door behind him. Roman walked closer to the bed, stopped a few feet away, like he wasn't sure he was allowed to come any closer. "I didn't know," he said. McKenna stared at him. "Didn't know what?" "About your grandfather, about the ownership. I swear, McKenna, I had no idea." "Would it have mattered?" McKenna asked. Roman flinched. "What?" "If you'd known I was a billionaire, if you'd known I owned your family's company, would you have treated me differently?" Silence. McKenna's voice was cold. "That's what I thought." Roman ran a hand through his hair. "McKenna, please. I know I messed up. I know I should have defended you. Should have stood up to my mother. But I was scared." "Scared of what?" "Of losing everything." McKenna laughed, bitter, painful. "And what do you think I was losing? I was losing you, my dignity, my job, my baby." Roman's jaw tightened. "I didn't want it to be like this. But it is like this," McKenna said. "Because you chose it." Roman stepped closer, reached for her arm. "McKenna, we can fix this. We can fix us." McKenna pulled away, and the look in her eyes made Roman freeze. "There is no us," McKenna said. "There never was." "McKenna, you know what the saddest part is?" McKenna's voice cracked. "I actually loved you. I believed you when you said I mattered. I thought those midnight conversations were real." "They were real," Roman insisted. "No," McKenna said. "They were convenient. I was convenient until your mother decided I wasn't." Roman's hands shook. "I can change." "I don't want you to change," McKenna said. "I want you to leave." "McKenna, please." "For the first time in my life," McKenna said, voice steady and strong, "I don't need you. I don't need your approval. I don't need your love. I don't need anything from you. Have you ever realized you were stronger without someone than you were with them? That's the moment you stop being a victim and start being a survivor. If you've felt that power, you know exactly what McKenna's feeling right now." Roman stared at her, and for the first time, he looked truly lost. "What are you going to do?" he asked quietly. McKenna looked at her daughter, then at the document Samuel left on the bed, then at Roman. "Tomorrow," she said, "I'm walking into Giovanni International as the majority shareholder, as the chairwoman, as the person who decides whether your family keeps their empire or loses everything." Roman's face went pale. "You wouldn't." "Maybe I will," McKenna said. "Maybe I won't. But that's the thing, Roman. It's my choice now, not yours, not your mother's. Mine." She stood up, cradling her daughter, walked to the door, opened it. "Now get out." Roman hesitated, looked like he wanted to say something, but no words came. He walked past her, stopped in the doorway, turned back. "I'm sorry," he whispered. McKenna didn't respond. She just closed the door. And for the first time since she'd met Roman Giovanni, McKenna felt free. But outside that hospital, Claudette was already making calls. To lawyers, to board members, to people who owed her favors. Because Claudette Giovanni didn't lose, and she wasn't about to let some maid take everything she'd built, even if that maid technically owned it. The war for the Giovanni empire was about to begin, and McKenna had no idea what Claudette was planning next. McKenna stood in front of the mirror, staring at a woman she barely recognized. The sleek black suit fit her perfectly. Tailored. Professional. powerful. Her curls weren't pulled back or hidden. They framed her face proudly, unapologetically. She wasn't the maid anymore. She wasn't the woman who cleaned their floors or served their meals or disappeared into the background. She was Makina Hayes, billionaire, majority shareholder, the woman who owned the empire that tried to destroy her. Her daughter cooed softly in the carrier strapped to her chest. Makina looked down and smiled. "Ready, baby? Mama's about to change our lives." Samuel waited in the lobby of the hospital with a car. Black. Sleek. The kind of car Makina used to watch pull up to the Giovanni estate and wonder what it felt like to sit inside. Now she knew. "You look ready," Samuel said as she slid into the back seat. Makina adjusted her daughter's blanket. "I don't know if I'm ready, but I'm done being scared." "That's all you need." The drive to Giovanni International headquarters felt surreal. Makina had passed this building 100 times, seen the gold letters gleaming in the sun, watched employees in expensive suits walk through the glass doors like they owned the world. And now? Now she actually did own it. The car pulled up to the front entrance. Samuel opened the door. Makina stepped out, cradling her daughter, and immediately people stared. Employees on their way to work paused, whispered, pointed. "Is that her? The maid? I heard she owns the company now." "No way, that can't be true." Makina held her head high and walked toward the entrance. Every step felt like reclaiming a piece of herself that the Giovannis tried to take. The lobby was massive, marble floors, crystal chandeliers, a reception desk that looked like it belonged in a palace. The receptionist looked up. Her smile froze when she saw Makina. "Can I help you?" she asked, voice tight. "I'm here for the board meeting," Makina said calmly. The receptionist blinked. "I'm sorry, but the board meeting is for executives and shareholders only." Samuel stepped forward. "Ms. Hayes is the majority shareholder. She owns 51% of this company." The receptionist's face went pale. I didn't know." "I'm so sorry. Let me call upstairs." "Don't," Makina said. "I'll find my way." She walked past the desk, toward the elevators. Samuel followed. More employees stared, whispered, pulled out their phones. Makina didn't care. Let them talk. Let them wonder. Let them see that the woman they overlooked was the one who held all the power. The elevator doors opened, and Roman stepped out. He froze when he saw her. His eyes moved from her face to the baby in her arms to the suit she wore. "Makina," he breathed. She didn't stop walking, didn't slow down, just headed straight for the elevator. "Makina, wait, please." She stopped, didn't turn around, just waited. Roman came closer. "I know you're angry. I know I don't deserve anything from you, but please, let me be in my daughter's life." Makina finally turned to face him. Her expression was calm, cold, unreadable. "You had your chance, Roman. I made a mistake." "No," Makina cut him off. "You made a choice. You chose your mother. You chose Alessia. You chose your empire over your daughter." "I can change," Roman pleaded. "I can be better." "I don't care if you change," Makina said. "I don't care if you're better, because none of that changes what you did." Roman's jaw tightened. "So that's it? You're just going to shut me out?" "I'm not shutting you out," Makina said. "You were never in." She stepped into the elevator. Roman grabbed her wrist. "Don't punish me for being weak," he said desperately. Makina looked at his hand on her wrist, then at his face, and for a moment she saw the man she used to love, the one who whispered promises in the dark, the one who made her believe she mattered. But that man was gone, if he ever existed at all. "I'm not punishing you," Makina said quietly. "I'm moving forward." She pulled her wrist free, stepped into the elevator, pressed the button for the top floor. Roman stood there, staring at her, broken, lost. The elevator doors closed, and McKenna exhaled. Samuel stood beside her, silent, respectful. "You okay?" he asked. McKenna looked down at her daughter. "Yeah, I am." The elevator climbed. McKenna's heart pounded. Her hands trembled slightly, but she wasn't scared. She was ready. The doors opened on the top floor, the executive level, where the real power lived. A long hallway stretched ahead. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city. Artwork that probably cost more than most people's houses lined the walls. At the end of the hallway was a set of double doors. Mahogany, polished, intimidating. The boardroom. Samuel stopped in front of the doors. "Ready?" McKenna adjusted her daughter's carrier, straightened her shoulders, lifted her chin. "Let's do this." Samuel pushed the doors open, and McKenna walked in. The boardroom was enormous. A long table stretched down the center, leather chairs, crystal water glasses, views of Los Angeles that made the city look like it belonged to whoever sat in this room. 12 men and 3 women sat around the table, all of them in expensive suits, all of them older, established, powerful. They looked up when McKenna entered, and every single one of them froze. Claudette sat at the far end of the table, spine straight, expression icy. Roman stood near the windows, arms crossed. Alessia sat beside an older man McKenna didn't recognize. She looked shocked, scared. McKenna walked to the head of the table, the seat reserved for the chairman, or in this case, the chairwoman. One of the board members, a man in his 60s with gray hair and a sharp suit, stood up. "I'm sorry, but this is a private meeting." Samuel stepped forward. "Ms. Hayes is the majority shareholder of Giovanni International Holdings. She has every right to be here." The man's eyes widened. "The majority shareholder is Caleb Hayes. He's been deceased for 2 years. And his ownership transferred to his granddaughter," Samuel said. He handed the man a document. "McKenna Hayes, 51%. Controlling interest." The man read the document. His face drained of color. He looked at Claudette. "Did you know about this?" Claudette's smile was sharp, dangerous. "We're handling it." "Handling it?" McKenna said. Her voice cut through the room like a blade. "You mean hiding it? Pretending I don't exist? Just like you've been doing for the last year?" Silence. McKenna placed her hands on the back of the chair. "My name is McKenna Hayes. I own 51% of this company, which means every decision made in this room requires my approval." One of the women at the table spoke up. "With all due respect, Ms. Hayes, running a billion-dollar company requires experience, knowledge, training." "You're right," McKenna said, "which is why I'm hiring new leadership." Gasps. Claudette stood up. "You can't do that." McKenna turned to her. Calm, cold, unshakable. "Yes, I can, because I own this company, not you." The room erupted, board members talking over each other. Claudette's face twisted with fury. Roman looked like he might be sick, but McKenna didn't flinch. She sat down in the chairman's seat. Her daughter cooed softly, and for the first time in her life, McKenna Hayes felt like she belonged. But outside that boardroom, Claudette's lawyer was already making calls, because powerful women like Claudette Giovanni didn't lose without a fight. And the battle for the Giovanni empire was only just beginning. The Giovanni boardroom was built to intimidate. Mahogany tables stretching 20 feet. Leather chairs that cost more than most people's cars. Crystal water glasses catching the morning light. Floor-to-ceiling windows showcasing Los Angeles like a kingdom waiting to be claimed. This room was designed to make people feel small, but McKenna wasn't small anymore. She stood at the entrance, cradling her daughter, wearing a suit that fit like armor. Samuel stood beside her, briefcase in hand, face calm, but ready. Every board member turned to stare. 15 of the most powerful executives in California. Men and women who controlled billions, who made decisions that shaped industries, and they all froze when they saw the maid walk in. One by one, they stood, not out of respect, out of confusion. "Who is this?" an older man asked, looking at Claudette. Claudette's smile was tight, dangerous. "A guest. She'll be leaving shortly." "No," Samuel said. "She won't." Roman stood near the window, arms crossed. He looked exhausted, defeated. But when he saw McKenna, something in his expression shifted. He walked toward the head of the table, the chairman's seat, the seat that had belonged to his father, then to him. He reached for the chair. Samuel stepped in front of him. "That's not your seat anymore." Roman's jaw tightened. "What are you talking about?" "That seat," Samuel said clearly, "belongs to the majority shareholder, which, as of yesterday, is Ms. Hayes." The room exploded. "That's impossible. Who is she?" "Claudette, what is he talking about?" Claudette's hands gripped the edge of the table. "This is a misunderstanding. We're handling it." "There's no misunderstanding," McKenna said. Her voice cut through the chaos like a knife. Everyone went silent. McKenna walked to the head of the table, stood behind the chair, looked at every single person in that room. "My name is McKenna Hayes," she said. "As of yesterday, I became the owner of 51% of Giovanni International Holdings." One of the directors, a woman in her 50s with sharp eyes, leaned forward. 51%? That's impossible. The Giovanni family has held majority control for decades. "They thought they did," Samuel corrected. He placed a thick folder on the table, opened it. In 1987, Caleb Hayes saved the Giovanni family from bankruptcy. In exchange, he took controlling ownership. 51%. Silent ownership, but ownership nonetheless. He spread documents across the table. Contracts, signatures, corporate filings. Every hotel you've built, every expansion you've made, every profit you've claimed, it all required approval from Caleb Hayes, and when he died, that ownership transferred to his granddaughter. Samuel gestured to McKenna. "Ms. Hayes." The woman who'd spoken earlier picked up one of the documents. "Read it." Her eyes widened. "These signatures are legitimate." "Every single one," Samuel confirmed. Another director, a man with silver hair, looked at Claudette. "Did you know about this?" Claudette's face was stone. "It's being contested." "On what grounds?" Samuel asked. Silence. McKenna sat down in the chairman's seat. Her daughter cooed softly in her arms. The director who'd questioned her earlier stared. "But you were the maid." McKenna met her gaze, calm, steady, unshakable. "I was underestimated," McKenna said. "Your mistake." The room went silent. You could hear a pin drop. Have you ever watched someone who was overlooked take their rightful place? That moment when power shifts and everyone realizes they were wrong? If you've seen it or felt it, you know how powerful that moment is. McKenna placed her hands on the table. "For the last year, I worked in the Giovanni estate. I cleaned your floors. I served your meals. I stayed invisible because that's what people like you wanted." She looked at Roman, at Claudette, at every board member who'd walked past her like she didn't exist. "But the entire time," McKenna continued, "I owned this company. I owned every building, every contract, every decision you thought was yours." One of the directors spoke up. "With all due respect, Ms. Hayes, running a billion-dollar company requires experience," McKenna finished. "Knowledge, training," she smiled. "You're right, which is why I'm making changes." Claudette stood up. "You can't." "Yes, I can," McKenna said. Her voice was ice. "I own 51%, which means I control the board. I approve executives, I make decisions, and anyone who has a problem with that can leave, right now." No one moved. McKenna pulled out a list Samuel had prepared. "Effective immediately, I'm restructuring leadership, starting with the CFO position. Mr. Grayson, you're fired." The man in the silver hair went pale. "You can't fire me without cause." You approved bonuses to executives while cutting healthcare for staff, McKenna said. That's cause. She looked at the next name. Ms. Sinclair, VP of Operations. You ignored 3 harassment complaints last year. You're done. Gasps. McKenna kept going. Anyone who participated in unethical practices, anyone who turned a blind eye to abuse, anyone who believed money made them untouchable, consider this your notice. The room was chaos. Directors arguing, some standing, some trying to defend themselves. But McKenna didn't flinch. She looked at Roman. And you. You're relieved of all executive duties until further notice. Roman's face drained of color. McKenna, you can't. I just did. She turned to Claudette. As for you, Mrs. Giovanni, you're removed from the board, effective immediately. Claudette's mask finally cracked. Fury burned in her eyes. You have no idea what you're doing. Maybe not, McKenna said. But I know what you did. And I know that people who treat others like they're nothing deserve to lose everything. She stood up, adjusted her daughter's blanket, looked at the entire room. This company was built on my grandfather's money, his vision, his sacrifice. And for 37 years, the Giovanni family pretended he didn't exist. Pretended I didn't matter. McKenna's voice was steady, strong, powerful. But I do matter. And anyone who treated me like I didn't belong, anyone who looked at me like I was less than human, should pray I forget. Silence. Total, absolute silence. McKenna turned to Samuel. Let's go. They walked toward the door. Board members scrambled. Some tried to apologize. Some tried to explain. McKenna ignored all of them. She reached the door, stopped, looked back one more time. One more thing, she said. This company will operate with integrity from now on. Fair wages, ethical practices, respect for every employee, no matter their position. Because I remember what it's like to be invisible, she paused, and I will never let anyone feel that way again. Then she walked out. The door closed behind her. Inside the boardroom, chaos erupted. Directors yelling, Roman collapsing into a chair, Claudette standing frozen, her empire crumbling around her. But outside in the hallway, someone was waiting. Alessia. She stood near the elevator, arms crossed, mascara smudged like she'd been crying. When she saw McKenna, she stepped forward. McKenna, wait, please. I need to talk to you. McKenna stopped. I have nothing to say to you. I know, Alessia said quickly. But I have something to say, something you need to hear. Samuel stepped between them. Ms. Hayes doesn't owe you anything. I know, Alessia repeated. Tears filled her eyes. But if she doesn't hear this, Claudette is going to destroy her. McKenna's chest tightened. What are you talking about? Alessia looked around, lowered her voice. Claudette didn't just plan to take your baby. She planned to make sure you disappeared. Permanently. McKenna's blood went cold. What? She hired someone, Alessia whispered. Someone to make it look like an accident, and they're coming for you tonight. McKenna's heart stopped. What do you mean someone's coming for me? Alessia's hands trembled, her mascara was smudged, her voice shook. Claudette hired someone. I don't know who, but I heard her on the phone last night. She said you were a threat that needed to be eliminated. Samuel stepped forward. That's a serious accusation. I know, Alessia said, but it's true. I swear. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't. McKenna stared at her, at the woman who'd walked into her delivery room holding Roman's hand, the woman who'd smiled while McKenna's world collapsed. Why should I believe you? McKenna asked. Alessia's eyes filled with tears. Because I'm tired of being part of this. I'm tired of the lies, and I'm tired of watching Claudette destroy people. Then why did you help her? Alessia looked at the floor, ashamed, broken. Because she promised me everything I ever wanted. McKenna's jaw tightened. What did she promise you? A career, Alessia whispered. Fame. Money. She said if I helped remove you from Roman's life, she'd make me a star. Get me modeling contracts, acting roles, everything I dreamed of. McKenna's chest burned. So you played along? Yes. Alessia's voice cracked. Claudette paid me to pretend Roman loved me, to show up at the hospital, to make you feel like you'd lost him. McKenna's hands clenched into fists. You knew I was pregnant? Not at first, Alessia said quickly. I swear, I didn't know until the last minute. Claudette told me you were just a maid who got too close. She said Roman needed to be reminded of his place, of who he was supposed to be with. Someone like you, McKenna said bitterly. Someone she could control, Alessia corrected. Claudette didn't care about me. She cared about keeping you away from Roman, away from the family, away from the money. Samuel pulled out his phone. If Claudette made threats, we need to involve the police. No, Alessia said, you don't understand. Claudette has connections. Lawyers, judges, people who owe her favors. If you go to the police, she'll make it disappear. McKenna's pulse raced. Then what am I supposed to do? Disappear first, Alessia said. Get somewhere safe. Somewhere she can't find you. At least until you figure out your next move. McKenna looked at Samuel. He nodded slowly. She's right. Until we have concrete evidence, you're vulnerable. McKenna's mind spun. She'd just walked into that boardroom like she owned the world. And now she was supposed to hide? No, McKenna said. Alessia blinked. What? I'm not hiding, McKenna said. I've spent my entire life hiding. Being invisible, letting people like Claudette decide my future. I'm done. McKenna, she wants you dead, Alessia said desperately. Then let her try, McKenna said. Her voice was steel. Because I'm not running anymore. Samuel placed a hand on her shoulder. We'll increase security. Keep you protected. But Alessia's right. We need to be smart about this. McKenna nodded, then looked at Alessia. Really looked at her. Why are you telling me this? What's in it for you? Alessia wiped her eyes. Nothing. I couldn't watch her hurt you again. What she did in that delivery room, that was wrong. And I was part of it. McKenna felt old pain rise. The memory of lying in that hospital bed. Alone. Humiliated. Watching Alicia stand beside Roman like she belonged there. But McKenna pushed the pain down. You were part of my humiliation. I know, Alessia whispered. And I'm sorry. I know sorry doesn't fix it, but I need you to know. Roman didn't love me. He never did. McKenna's chest tightened. Then why was he with you? Because he didn't want to disappoint his mother, Alessia said. Claudette told him that being with me would be good for the family image, that you were a mistake he needed to move past. And Roman? He's so desperate for his mother's approval, he'll do anything. McKenna swallowed hard, even abandon his own daughter. Yes. Silence. McKenna looked at Alessia, at the tears streaming down her face, at the guilt written all over her expression, and part of McKenna wanted to forgive her, wanted to believe that Alessia was just another victim of Claudette's manipulation. But the bigger part? The part that had been broken and rebuilt? That part didn't forget. Thank you for the warning, McKenna said coldly. But that doesn't change what you did. I know. McKenna adjusted her daughter's blanket. You stood beside Roman while I was in labor. You smiled while Claudette tried to take my baby. You played your part perfectly. I'm sorry. I don't care if you're sorry, McKenna said. Her voice was calm but lethal. Because sorry doesn't erase what happened. It doesn't fix the damage. And it doesn't make us okay. Alessia's face crumpled. What can I do? Nothing, McKenna said. Absolutely nothing. She started walking toward the elevator. Samuel followed. McKenna, please, Alessia called after her. I want to help. McKenna stopped. Didn't turn around, just spoke over her shoulder. You want to help? Stay away from me. Stay away from my daughter. And if you ever see Claudette planning something, you call Samuel, not me, because I don't trust you, and I never will. Alessia nodded, tears streaming down her face. I understand. McKenna stepped into the elevator. Samuel pressed the button for the ground floor. As the doors closed, McKenna caught one last glimpse of Alessia standing in the hallway. Broken. Alone. Realizing too late that some betrayals can't be undone. The elevator descended in silence. Finally, Samuel spoke. Do you believe her? About Claudette? McKenna looked down at her daughter, at the tiny face that depended on her for everything. Yes, McKenna said. I believe her. Then we need to act fast. I know. Samuel pulled out his phone. I'll call in favors, get you private security, make sure you and the baby are protected 24/7. McKenna nodded, but her mind was already racing, already planning. Claudette wanted her gone? Fine. But McKenna wasn't going to wait around to be a victim. She was going to hit first. The elevator doors opened. McKenna stepped into the lobby, holding her daughter close. Employees stared, whispered, but McKenna didn't care. She walked out of Giovanni International with her head high, her spine straight, her resolve unshakable. Because Claudette Giovanni was about to learn something important. You don't threaten a mother and walk away unscathed. And McKenna? She was done playing defense. It was time to go on the attack. But as McKenna climbed into the car, she didn't see the black sedan parked across the street. Didn't see the man inside watching her every move. Didn't see him pull out his phone and make a call. She just left the building, the man said. Do you want me to proceed? On the other end of the line, Claudette's voice was cold, calculated, deadly. Not yet. Let her think she's safe. Then we strike. Claudette Giovanni had spent 3 days hiding inside her gated mansion, refusing phone calls, ignoring texts, watching her empire crumble from behind locked doors. But she wasn't hiding from shame. She was hiding because she knew what was coming. The knock on her door came at exactly 9 a.m. Sharp, authoritative, the kind of knock that meant business. Claudette stood in her marble foyer, staring at the door like it might explode. Her hands trembled slightly. Her perfectly styled hair was loose. Her makeup thinner than usual. She'd always been untouchable. Until now. She opened the door slowly. Samuel Bray stood on her doorstep. Beside him were 2 federal agents in dark suits, badges visible on their belts. Mrs. Giovanni, Samuel said. His voice was calm but deadly. We need to talk. Claudette's mask slipped for just a second. Fear flashed in her eyes. Then she pulled herself together. This is private property, she said coldly. You can't just— We have a warrant, one of the agents said, holding up a document. Claudette Giovanni, you are under investigation for financial misconduct involving Hayes Family Investments. Claudette's breath hitched. That's ridiculous. Is it? Samuel stepped forward. Because I have 37 years of financial records proving otherwise. He pulled out his briefcase, opened it, spread documents across the table in her foyer like he was laying out evidence in a courtroom. Fraud, Samuel said. Embezzlement. Money laundering. You stole millions from Caleb Hayes's investment accounts. Money that was supposed to fund company expansions. Money that legally belonged to him. Claudette's hands clenched. I managed those accounts. It was my job. Managing accounts doesn't mean stealing from them, Samuel said. You redirected funds, paid yourself bonuses, bought properties under shell companies, all while claiming the money was being used for business development. One of the agents pulled out handcuffs. Mrs. Giovanni, you have the right to remain silent. Wait, Claudette said quickly. Let's talk about this. I'm sure we can work something out. There's nothing to work out, Samuel said. The evidence is clear. You committed fraud, and now you're going to pay for it. The door behind Samuel opened. McKenna stepped inside. Claudette's face went pale. You. McKenna walked forward slowly, cradling her daughter. She looked at Claudette, at the woman who'd spent a year making her feel worthless, at the woman who'd tried to steal her baby, at the woman who'd just hired someone to make her disappear. "Hello, Claudette," McKenna said quietly. Claudette's jaw tightened. "You think you've won?" "I don't think anything," McKenna said. "I know." Claudette laughed, bitter, harsh. "You have no idea what you're dealing with. You're a child playing in a world you don't understand." "Maybe," McKenna said. "But I understand enough to know that people who hurt, others always pay eventually." Claudette stepped closer. Her voice dropped to a hiss. "You can't do this to me." "I'm not doing anything to you," McKenna said calmly. "I'm just ending what you started." Claudette's mask finally cracked. Fury burned in her eyes. Desperation, fear. "You think taking my company makes you powerful?" Claudette spat. "You think putting me in handcuffs makes you better than me?" "No," McKenna said. "I think it makes us even." The agents moved forward. One of them took Claudette's arm. "Mrs. Giovanni, you need to come with us." Claudette jerked her arm away. "Get your hands off me." "Ma'am, don't make this harder." "I said get off." Claudette's voice rose, shrill, panicked. She looked at McKenna, at Samuel, at the agents surrounding her, and for the first time in her life, Claudette Giovanni realized she wasn't in control. Have you ever seen someone who thought they were untouchable finally face consequences? That moment when power crumbles and reality sets in? If you have, you know how satisfying and painful it is to watch. The agent cuffed Claudette's wrists. She didn't resist this time, just stood there, trembling. "This isn't over," Claudette said quietly. "You have no idea what you've done." "I know exactly what I've done," McKenna said. "I've protected my daughter. I've taken back what my grandfather built, and I've made sure you can never hurt anyone again." Claudette's eyes filled with something dark, something dangerous. "You think you know everything," she said, "but you don't." McKenna frowned. "What are you talking about?" Claudette laughed. Weak, bitter. The kind of laugh that comes from desperation, not humor. "You think you're the first Hayes to walk into our lives?" Claudette said. "You think your grandfather was some hero who saved us?" McKenna's chest tightened. "He did save you." "No," Claudette hissed. "He destroyed us." Samuel stepped forward. "That's enough." "He blackmailed us," Claudette continued. "Controlled us. Made sure we could never escape him. Your grandfather wasn't a savior, McKenna. He was a monster." McKenna's heart pounded. "You're lying." "Am I?" Claudette's smile was twisted. "Ask yourself why a man who built billions would hide it all. Why he'd stay silent for decades. Why he'd structure everything to activate only after you gave birth." McKenna's hands shook. "Because he was protecting me." "Or because he was protecting himself," Claudette said. "From the truth." "What truth?" Claudette leaned closer, voice dropping to a whisper. "That your mother didn't die from cancer. She was running. From him." The world stopped. McKenna couldn't breathe, couldn't think, couldn't process what Claudette just said. "That's a lie," McKenna whispered. "Is it?" Claudette's eyes gleamed. "Your mother left you when you were a baby, disappeared for years, then suddenly came back sick and dying. Did you ever wonder why?" McKenna's vision blurred. "Stop." She was terrified of him, Claudette continued. Terrified of what he'd do if he found her. So she ran, and when she finally came back, it was too late. "You're lying," McKenna said louder. "You're just trying to—" "I'm telling you the truth," Claudette said. "The truth your grandfather spent billions hiding." The truth that explains why he controlled everything. Why he never let anyone get close. Samuel grabbed Claudette's arm. That's enough. You're done. The agent started leading Claudette toward the door. But she looked back at McKenna one more time. If you want to know what really happened to your mother, Claudette said, look in your grandfather's sealed archive, the one he told you not to open. McKenna's blood ran cold. There's a file marked Eleanor Hayes, Claudette said, your mother's name. Open it. Then you'll understand why your grandfather built this empire. The agents pulled Claudette out the door. Her voice echoed as she was led away. It wasn't to protect you, McKenna. It was to control you. The door closed. Silence. McKenna stood frozen. Her daughter cooed softly in her arms, but McKenna couldn't hear her. All she could hear was Claudette's voice. Your mother was running from him. Samuel touched her shoulder. McKenna, don't listen to her. She's desperate. She'll say anything. Is it true? McKenna whispered. I don't know. You said my grandfather left me an archive, a sealed one. Samuel hesitated. Yes. And there's a file on my mother? There are files on a lot of things, Samuel said carefully. But that doesn't mean I need to see it, McKenna said. McKenna, I need to see it, she repeated, firmer this time. Samuel looked at her, at the determination in her eyes, at the fear underneath. Finally, he nodded. Okay, but not today. You need to rest. Process everything that just happened. McKenna wanted to argue, wanted to demand answers right now, but her daughter whimpered, and McKenna remembered why she was doing all of this in the first place. Tomorrow, McKenna said. First thing. Tomorrow, Samuel agreed, but as McKenna left Claudette's mansion, one question burned in her mind. What if Claudette was telling the truth? What if her grandfather wasn't the hero she thought he was? And what if opening that archive destroyed everything she believed? McKenna couldn't sleep that night. She lay in the hotel suite Samuel had booked for her safety, staring at the ceiling, replaying Claudette's words over and over. Your grandfather didn't just save us. He destroyed us. Your mother was running from him. It couldn't be true. It didn't make sense. Her grandfather was a hero, a protector, the man who built an empire to keep her safe, right? But the doubt had planted itself deep, and now it was growing. By morning, McKenna had made her decision. She needed answers, real answers, not Claudette's twisted version of the truth. Samuel arrived at 8 with coffee and a concerned expression. You didn't sleep, he said. No. McKenna, whatever Claudette said, I need to see the archive, McKenna interrupted. The sealed one. The file on my mother. Samuel set the coffee down. Are you sure? No, McKenna admitted. But I need to know. Samuel studied her for a long moment, then nodded. Okay, I'll take you. They drove to a secure storage facility an hour outside Los Angeles, the kind of place that required 3 levels of security clearance just to get inside. Samuel led her through sterile hallways to a private vault, punched in a code, placed his hand on a scanner. The door opened. Inside was a single room, no windows, 1 desk, and dozens of filing cabinets lining the walls. Your grandfather's private archive, Samuel said. Everything he didn't want anyone to find. McKenna's chest tightened. Where's my mother's file? Samuel walked to a cabinet marked Family Confidential, pulled open a drawer, and handed McKenna a thick folder. Eleanor Hayes was written on the tab in faded ink. McKenna's hands shook as she opened it. The first document was a birth certificate. Her mother's. Born in Charlotte, North Carolina. Parents listed as Caleb Hayes and Margaret Hayes. Nothing strange there. But the second document made McKenna's breath catch. A restraining order. Filed in 1998. Eleanor Hayes versus Caleb Hayes. She filed a restraining order against him? McKenna whispered. Samuel looked over her shoulder. His face went pale. I didn't know about this. McKenna kept reading. Petitioner requests protection from respondent due to threats of financial control, surveillance, and interference in personal relationships. McKenna's vision blurred. He was controlling her. We don't know the full context. She filed a restraining order, Samuel, against her own father. McKenna's voice cracked. Why would she do that if he wasn't hurting her? Samuel didn't answer. McKenna flipped through more documents, bank statements showing Caleb had frozen Eleanor's accounts, private investigator reports tracking her location, letters from lawyers threatening legal action if Eleanor didn't return home. He was hunting her, McKenna said. She was trying to escape and he wouldn't let her. McKenna, don't, she snapped. Don't tell me there's context. Don't tell me he had reasons. She was terrified of him. McKenna's hands trembled as she reached the last document in the file, a death certificate. Eleanor Hayes, cause of death, cancer, but attached to it was a handwritten note. Not from her grandfather, from someone else. Eleanor refused treatment. She said she'd rather die than go back to him. I tried to convince her, but she wouldn't listen. By the time I realized how sick she was, it was too late. The note was signed by a doctor McKenna didn't recognize. McKenna's chest heaved. Tears streamed down her face. Her mother had chosen death over going back to her grandfather. That's how afraid she was. McKenna, Samuel said softly. I'm so sorry. McKenna couldn't speak, couldn't breathe, couldn't process what she'd just learned. Everything she thought she knew about her grandfather was a lie. He wasn't a hero. He was a monster. There's more, Samuel said quietly. He handed her another folder. This one's about the Giovannis. McKenna wiped her eyes, opened the folder. Inside were contracts, but not the ones Samuel had shown her before. These were different, blackmail agreements. In exchange for financial support, McKenna read aloud, the Giovanni family agrees to silence regarding Caleb Hayes' personal affairs. Any breach of this agreement will result in immediate seizure of all assets. McKenna looked up. He blackmailed them. Yes. Why? Samuel pointed to a document buried deeper in the file. A police report from 1987. Eleanor Hayes reported missing. Last seen fleeing from Giovanni estate. McKenna's blood ran cold. My mother was at the Giovanni estate? It looks like she was hiding there, Samuel said. And your grandfather found out. He threatened the Giovannis to get them to reveal her location. So he blackmailed them into giving her up, McKenna whispered. It appears so. McKenna felt sick. Her grandfather hadn't saved the Giovannis. He'd destroyed them to get to her mother, and when her mother finally escaped him, he'd built an empire to make sure no one could ever help her again. Claudette was telling the truth, McKenna said. About some things, Samuel corrected. But not everything. Your grandfather also genuinely invested in the company. He did help them grow. It wasn't just blackmail. But it started with blackmail. Samuel didn't argue. McKenna closed the file. Her entire world felt upside down. She'd spent the last week thinking she was reclaiming justice, honoring her grandfather's legacy, protecting what was hers. But what if she was protecting something built on pain, on control, on the same kind of cruelty Claudette had shown her? What do I do now? McKenna whispered. Samuel sat down beside her. That's up to you. I can't keep the company, McKenna said. Not if it was built this way. You can restructure it, Samuel offered. Make it something better. Something your grandfather should have built. McKenna looked at him. But it's still his. It's still tainted. Maybe, Samuel said. Or maybe you're exactly what this company needs. Someone who understands what it's like to be controlled. to be powerless. Someone who will make sure it never happens again. McKenna wanted to believe that. Wanted to think she could turn something ugly into something beautiful, but doubt clung to her like a shadow. "There's one more thing," Samuel said carefully. "Something I found while you were reading." He handed her a final document, a photograph. Old, faded, but clear enough to see the faces. Caleb Hayes, Eleanor Hayes, and a third person McKenna didn't recognize. A woman, young, beautiful, standing beside Caleb with her arm around Eleanor. "Who is she?" McKenna asked. Samuel flipped the photo over. On the back, written in her grandfather's handwriting, "Margaret, the only one who understood." McKenna frowned. "Margaret? That's my grandmother's name." "Yes," Samuel said slowly, "but this isn't your grandmother." McKenna's heart stopped. "What?" Samuel pulled out another document, a marriage certificate. Caleb Hayes and Margaret Giovanni. McKenna stared at the name. "Giovanni? Your grandmother was a Giovanni," Samuel said, "before she married your grandfather." The room spun. "Claudette is your grandmother's sister," Samuel finished, "which makes her your great-aunt." McKenna's hands shook. "So when Claudette said I wasn't the first Hayes to enter their lives, she meant your grandmother," Samuel said. And apparently it didn't end well. McKenna's mind raced. Her grandmother was a Giovanni, which meant her mother had Giovanni blood, which meant, "I'm part Giovanni," McKenna whispered. Samuel nodded, and suddenly everything made sense. Why her grandfather had blackmailed the Giovannis so easily, why Claudette hated her so viciously, why her mother had been hiding at the Giovanni estate, because it wasn't just business, it was family. Twisted, broken, poisoned family. McKenna looked at Samuel. "Does Claudette know?" "I don't know." "Does Roman?" "I doubt it." McKenna stood up. Her legs felt weak. Her head spun. She was part of the family she'd been fighting, part of the empire she thought she was reclaiming, and now she had no idea who she was anymore. "McKenna," Samuel said gently, "what do you want to do?" McKenna looked at the files scattered across the desk, at the photograph of her grandmother, at the truth that had just destroyed everything she believed, and then she looked at her daughter sleeping peacefully in the carrier. "I want to know what really happened," McKenna said, "between my grandmother and the Giovannis, between my mother and my grandfather. All of it." "That might take time." "I don't care," McKenna said, "because if I'm going to own this company, if I'm going to raise my daughter in this world, I need to know the whole truth." Samuel nodded. "Then we keep digging." But as they left the vault, neither of them noticed the security camera in the corner, or the fact that someone had been watching them the entire time. Someone who now knew exactly what McKenna had discovered, and they were already making a call. McKenna sat in the back of the car, staring at nothing, as Samuel drove them back to the hotel. Her mind wouldn't stop spinning. Her grandmother was a Giovanni. Her mother had been running from her grandfather. Everything she thought she knew about her family was a lie. "Talk to me," Samuel said gently. McKenna didn't respond. She just held her daughter closer, the only thing in her life that felt real anymore. "McKenna, my entire life is a lie," she whispered. Samuel glanced at her in the rearview mirror. "That's not true." "Isn't it?" McKenna's voice cracked. "My grandfather wasn't protecting me. He was controlling me. Just like he controlled my mother. Just like he controlled everyone." "You don't know that for sure." "I saw the restraining order, Samuel. I saw the police reports. My mother was so terrified of him she'd rather die than go back." Samuel pulled over to the side of the road, turned around to face her. "Listen to me," he said firmly. "Your grandfather made mistakes. Big ones. But that doesn't erase the fact that he built something for you. That he wanted you to have power. to have control over your own life. Control? McKenna laughed bitterly. He didn't give me control. He gave me chains, just prettier ones. Samuel's jaw tightened. So what are you going to do? Walk away? Give it all back to the Giovannis? Maybe. And then what? You think Claudette will just let you go? You think Roman will leave you and your daughter alone? McKenna's chest tightened. I don't know. You can't run from this, Samuel said. Not now. Not after everything you fought for. I didn't fight for this, McKenna said. I fought for my daughter, for a chance to breathe, not to become part of some twisted family legacy. Samuel studied her. Then change it. What? Change the legacy, Samuel said. Your grandfather built something dark, something controlling, but you? You can make it into something better, something that actually protects people instead of destroying them. McKenna wanted to believe that, wanted to think she could turn poison into medicine, but the doubt wouldn't leave. Have you ever discovered that everything you believed about someone was wrong? That the person you thought was good was actually broken? If you have, you know that kind of betrayal doesn't just hurt, it changes who you are. They arrived back at the hotel. McKenna went straight to her room, locked the door, and sat on the bed holding her daughter. What do I do, baby? She whispered. How do I fix this? Her daughter cooed softly, like she understood, like she was saying, You'll figure it out, Mama. McKenna's phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. You need to see this. Attached was a video file. McKenna hesitated, then pressed play. The video was grainy, old, shot on a handheld camera in what looked like the Giovanni estate. Her grandmother appeared on screen, young, beautiful, standing in a bedroom McKenna didn't recognize, and she was crying. Please, Caleb, her grandmother begged. You can't keep me here. This isn't love. This is prison. A man's voice responded, cold, calm, her grandfather. You belong with me, Margaret. You always have. No, her grandmother sobbed. I belong with my family, with my sister. You took me away from them. Your family didn't want you. I saved you. You stole me. The camera shook. Then the video cut to black. McKenna's hands trembled. She replayed it. Then again. Her grandfather had kidnapped her grandmother, taken her from the Giovannis, kept her isolated, controlled her entire life, and when Eleanor was born, he'd done the same thing to her. McKenna's phone buzzed again. Another text. There's more. Meet me tonight. Alone. I'll tell you everything. Who is this? McKenna typed back. The response came immediately. Someone who knows the truth. Someone who was there. McKenna's pulse raced. Where? The old Giovanni estate. Midnight. Come alone or I disappear. McKenna stared at the message. Every instinct screamed that this was a trap, but she needed answers. Real ones. Not documents in a vault. Not half-truths from Claudette. She needed to know what really happened. Samuel knocked on her door. McKenna, we need to talk about security. McKenna opened the door. I need you to watch my daughter tonight. Samuel frowned. Why? Where are you going? To get answers. McKenna. Please, Samuel, I need to do this alone. Samuel studied her face, saw the determination, the desperation. Finally, he nodded. Okay, but I'm putting a tracker on your phone, and if you're not back in 2 hours, I'm calling the police. Deal. That night, McKenna drove to the old Giovanni estate, the one that had been abandoned for years. The one where her grandmother had been held. The gates were rusted, the driveway cracked, the house dark and looming like a tomb. McKenna parked and stepped out. The air was cold, silent. She walked toward the front door. It creaked open before she could knock. Hello? McKenna called. No response. She stepped inside. The house smelled like dust and decay, furniture covered in white sheets, chandeliers thick with cobwebs. I'm here, McKenna said. Where are you? A voice echoed from upstairs. Come up. McKenna's heart pounded. She climbed the stairs slowly, each step creaking under her weight. At the top, a door was open, light flickering inside. McKenna walked toward it, stepped through, and froze. Sitting in a chair by the window was a woman. Old, frail, but her eyes were sharp, familiar. Hello, McKenna, the woman said. McKenna's breath caught. Who are you? The woman smiled. Sad. Tired. I'm Margaret Hayes, she said. Your grandmother. McKenna staggered back. That's impossible, you're dead. That's what he wanted everyone to believe, Margaret said. But I've been hiding. For 30 years. Waiting for the right time to come back. McKenna's mind raced. You've been alive this whole time? Yes. Why didn't you? Because I was terrified, Margaret said. Terrified of what your grandfather would do if he found me, so I disappeared, changed my name, lived in the shadows. McKenna's hands shook. My mother. Did you know she was dying? Margaret's eyes filled with tears. Yes. And I tried to save her. Tried to convince her to get treatment. But she refused. She said she'd rather die free than live under his control. McKenna's chest heaved. Why are you telling me this now? Because you need to know the truth, Margaret said. About your grandfather. About the Giovannis. About why everything happened the way it did. Then tell me. Margaret took a deep breath. Your grandfather didn't save the Giovannis. He destroyed them. Because they helped me escape. McKenna's stomach dropped. What? I ran to my sister, to Claudette, begged her to hide me. And she did. For 6 months I lived in the Giovanni estate, hiding from your grandfather. But he found you? Yes, Margaret whispered. And when he did, he made sure the Giovannis paid. He bankrupted them, took their company, made them beg for mercy, and then he gave it to them. On one condition. What condition? Margaret's voice broke. That they never speak of me again. That they pretend I never existed. That they let him take me without a fight. McKenna felt sick. And they agreed. They had no choice. McKenna sank into a chair. So Claudette hates me because you're his blood, Margaret said. Because every time she looks at you, she sees him. The man who destroyed her family. The man who stole her sister. McKenna's vision blurred. And my mother? Eleanor tried to escape just like I did, Margaret said. But he found her too. And when she got pregnant with you, he made sure she stayed close. Controlled her money, her movements, everything. Until she died. Until she chose death, Margaret corrected. Because living under his control was worse. McKenna couldn't breathe, couldn't think. Her grandfather wasn't a hero. He was a monster, and she'd spent the last week defending him. What do I do now? McKenna whispered. Margaret reached for her hand. You break the cycle. You take the empire he built on pain and fear, and you turn it into something good, something that actually helps people. How? By being nothing like him, Margaret said. McKenna looked into her grandmother's eyes, saw the pain, the strength, the hope, and made a decision. I'm keeping the company, McKenna said, but I'm changing everything. The leadership, the policies, the culture, all of it. Margaret smiled. Good. And I'm going to find Claudette, McKenna continued, and I'm going to tell her the truth, that I'm not my grandfather, that I'm not here to destroy her. She won't believe you. Then I'll prove it. Margaret squeezed her hand. You're stronger than he ever was. McKenna stood up. I have to go. My daughter. I know, Margaret said. Go. Protect her. Love her. Give her the life I couldn't give your mother. McKenna walked toward the door, stopped, looked back. Will I see you again? Margaret's smile was sad. Maybe. When it's safe. McKenna nodded. then left. But as she drove away from the estate, she didn't see the figure watching from the shadows. Someone who'd heard everything. Someone who was already making a call. "She knows," the voice said. Margaret told her everything. On the other end of the line, a familiar voice responded. Cold, calculated, deadly. "Then we move to Plan B, tonight." McKenna returned to the penthouse at 2 in the morning, heart still racing from everything her grandmother had revealed. Samuel was asleep on the couch, her daughter peaceful in the portable crib beside him. McKenna stood in the doorway, watching them both. The only two people in the world she could trust right now. But trust wasn't enough anymore. She needed truth. McKenna walked to the desk where Samuel had left a small metal box earlier that week. Inside was a digital key, the kind that unlocked encrypted files, her grandfather's personal archive, the one he'd sealed himself, the one he'd instructed Samuel not to open until McKenna was ready. Was she ready? No, but she was done waiting. McKenna sat down at the laptop Samuel had set up for her, inserted the digital key into the USB port. The screen flickered. A password prompt appeared. She typed, "Eleanor, invalid." She tried, "Margaret, invalid." Her hands shook. What would her grandfather use? Then it hit her. She typed, "McKenna." The screen unlocked. Folders appeared, dozens of them, each one labeled with clinical precision. Hayes Family Protection Program. Giovanni Acquisition Records. Eleanor, Medical and Legal. Margaret, Disappearance Investigation. And at the bottom, one folder that made McKenna's breath catch. McKenna, Future Instructions. She stared at it. Her name. Her future. Written by a man who'd controlled everyone around him. Should she open it? What if the truth inside destroyed everything she thought she knew about herself? But she'd come this far. She couldn't turn back now. McKenna clicked the folder. A single video file appeared, titled, "For McKenna, watch when you're ready." She double-clicked. The video loaded slowly. Then her grandfather's face filled the screen. He looked older than McKenna remembered from the few photos she'd seen. Tired. Gray hair thin and messy. Eyes heavy with something that looked like regret. "McKenna," he said. His voice was rough. Worn. "If you're watching this, it means you've inherited everything. The money. The company. The truth." He paused, took a shaky breath. "And you probably hate me." McKenna's chest tightened. "You have every right to," he continued. "I wasn't a good man. I wasn't a good father, and I sure as hell wasn't a good grandfather." He leaned forward, closer to the camera. "But I need you to understand something. Everything I did, every terrible choice I made, I did because I was terrified." McKenna frowned. "Terrified of what?" "Your grandmother," he said, like he could hear her thoughts. "Margaret. I loved her more than anything in this world, but I loved her wrong." He rubbed his face. "I met her when she was 19. She was a Giovanni. Beautiful. Smart. Full of life. And I was nobody. Just a man trying to build something from nothing." His voice cracked. "She chose me. Against her family's wishes. Against everything she knew. She chose me." McKenna felt her throat tighten. "But I was so afraid of losing her," he continued, "that I became the very thing she ran from. I controlled her, isolated her, made her dependent on me." Tears filled his eyes. "And when she finally tried to leave, I hunted her down, brought her back, made sure she could never escape again." McKenna's hands shook. "Your mother," he whispered. "Eleanor. She saw what I was, saw what I'd done to Margaret, and she swore she'd never let me do the same to her." He wiped his eyes. "But I couldn't help myself. I tried to control her, too. And when she got pregnant with you, I thought maybe I could fix things. Maybe I could be better." His voice broke. "But I wasn't. I was worse." Makina's vision blurred with tears. Eleanor ran, he said, just like her mother, and I let her, because I finally realized that loving someone doesn't mean owning them. He leaned back, exhausted, broken. By the time I figured that out, it was too late. Eleanor was dying, and Margaret was gone. And I was alone with all the money in the world and no one to share it with. He looked directly into the camera. So I built this for you, Makina. Not to control you, not to make you like me, but to give you the power I never gave them. He paused. The power to choose. Makina's tears fell freely now. You can keep the company, he said. You can sell it. You can burn it to the ground. I don't care, because it's yours, not mine, yours. He smiled, sad, tired. I just hope that whatever you choose it because it's what you want, not because someone told you to, not because you think you owe me something. His voice dropped to a whisper. You don't owe me anything, Makina. You never did. The video flickered. Her grandfather's image started to fade. But before it disappeared completely, he said one more thing. Your grandmother is alive. Makina's breath caught. I know because I've been paying people to protect her for 30 years, to make sure I never found her, to make sure she stayed free. He smiled. Genuine this time. If you've already met her, good. If you haven't, she's waiting. And she'll tell you everything I couldn't. The screen went black. Makina sat frozen, tears streaming down her face, her heart pounding. Her grandfather had known Margaret was alive, had paid people to keep her hidden. From himself, he'd let her go. Finally, Makina closed the laptop, looked at her daughter sleeping peacefully across the room, and for the first time since this nightmare started, Makina felt something she didn't expect. Peace. Not because her grandfather was a hero, he wasn't, but because he'd given her something no one else in her family had ever had. A choice. She could walk away, disappear with her daughter, start over somewhere no one knew her name. Or she could stay. Fight. Turn the empire he built on pain into something that actually helped people. The choice was hers. But before Makina could decide, her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. I hope you enjoyed the video, because it's the last thing you'll ever see. Makina's blood ran cold. Another text came through. This one with a photo attached. It was her daughter, asleep in the crib, taken from inside the penthouse, right now. Makina's heart stopped. She spun, around. The crib was empty. Samuel was still on the couch, but he wasn't sleeping. He was unconscious, a small dart sticking out of his neck. No, Makina whispered. No, no, no. She ran to the crib, tore through the blankets, but her daughter was gone. Another text. You have 1 hour. Come to the old Giovanni estate alone, or you'll never see her again. Makina's hands shook so violently she almost dropped the phone. Someone had taken her baby, and she knew exactly who. Claudette. Makina's hands shook as she grabbed her keys. Her daughter was gone. Taken from her own home while she'd been watching a video. While she'd been learning the truth about a grandfather she never met. And now, someone had her baby. She shook Samuel awake. He groaned, touching the dart in his neck. What happened? He mumbled. Someone took her, Makina said. Her voice was ice. They took my daughter. Samuel's eyes went wide. He shot up. What? How? Makina shoved her phone in his face. They left a message. I have 1 hour. Old Giovanni estate, alone. Samuel grabbed the phone, read the texts. His face went pale. This is a trap. I don't care. Makina, you can't. They have my baby, Makina said. Her voice cracked. I don't care if it's a trap. I don't care if they kill me. I'm getting her back. Samuel stood up, still dizzy. Then I'm coming with you. No. They said alone. And you trust them? I don't have a choice. Samuel grabbed her shoulders. Listen to me. Whoever did this wants you dead. Going alone is exactly what they want. Then what do you want me to do? Makana's voice broke. Wait? Call the police? Waste time while my daughter is with someone who wants to hurt me? Samuel's jaw tightened. No. But we do this smart. I'll follow at a distance. Stay hidden. The second things go wrong, I move in. Makana nodded. She didn't have time to argue. They left immediately. Makana drove like her life depended on it. Because it did. Her daughter's life depended on it. The old Giovanni estate loomed ahead. Dark. Empty. Haunted by decades of secrets and lies. Makana parked and stepped out. The air was cold. Silent. Samuel's car stopped a quarter-mile back, lights off. Makana walked toward the house. The front door was open, just like before. I'm here, Makana called. Where's my daughter? No response. Makana stepped inside. The house felt colder than before, more sinister. She climbed the stairs, each step echoing. At the top, light flickered from the same room she'd met her grandmother in. Makana pushed the door open and froze. Claudette sat in the chair, holding Makana's daughter. The baby was crying. Softly, like she knew something was wrong. Give her to me, Makana said. Claudette smiled. Not yet. I swear to God, Claudette, if you hurt her, I'm not going to hurt her, Claudette said. I'm going to raise her, the way I should have raised you. Makana's blood ran cold. What? You're a Giovanni, Claudette said. Whether you like it or not. Your grandmother was my sister, your mother was my niece, and this baby, she's family. She's my daughter. She's also a Giovanni, Claudette said, and she deserves better than a mother who doesn't understand her own legacy. Makana stepped closer. Give her to me. Claudette stood up, cradling the baby. Your grandfather destroyed my family, took my sister, ruined everything we built, and now you walk in here thinking you can just take over? Thinking you deserve what's ours? It was never yours, Makana said. It was my grandfather's, and now it's mine. No, Claudette hissed. It's stolen, built on lies and blackmail and pain, and I will not let you profit from it. Then what do you want? Makana asked. You want me to walk away? Fine. I'll give you the company. I'll give you everything. Just give me my daughter. Claudette's smile widened. I don't want the company, Makana. I want you gone. Permanently. Makana's heart stopped. Claudette pulled out a small vial from her pocket. This is the same poison your grandfather used to control people. Slow, painful, untraceable. You're insane. No, Claudette said. I'm a survivor, and survivors do what they have to do. She stepped toward Makana. Say goodbye to your daughter. But before Claudette could move, another voice echoed from the doorway. Put the baby down, mother. Makana spun around. Roman stood in the doorway, his face pale, his hands shaking. Roman, Claudette said sharply. This doesn't concern you. Yes, it does, Roman said. That's my daughter, and you're not taking her. Claudette's expression twisted. You're weak, just like your father, just like every Giovanni man before you. Maybe, Roman said, but I'm done letting you control me. He stepped forward. Give Makana the baby. Or what? Claudette challenged. Or I testify, Roman said, against you, about the fraud, the embezzlement, the threats, all of it. Claudette's mask cracked. You wouldn't dare. Try me. For a long moment, no one moved. Then Claudette's shoulders sagged. She looked at the baby in her arms, at Makana, at Roman, and slowly she handed the baby to Makana. Makana grabbed her daughter and held her close, tears streaming down her face. Thank you, thank you. Claudette stepped back, her eyes empty, defeated. You think you've won, she said quietly, but you haven't. This legacy? It's cursed, and it will destroy you, just like it destroyed everyone else. Maybe, Makana said, Or maybe I'll be the one to break the curse. Police sirens wailed in the distance. Samuel had called them. Claudette didn't run, didn't fight. She just stood there as the officers came up the stairs and placed her in handcuffs. "It's over," one of the officers said. But McKenna knew it wasn't over. Not yet. Later that night, McKenna sat in her penthouse holding her daughter. Safe. Alive. Together. Samuel sat across from her. "What are you going to do now?" McKenna looked at her daughter, at the tiny face that depended on her for everything. "I'm going to give her the life my mother never had," McKenna said. "The life my grandmother deserved. The life my grandfather stole from everyone he loved." "And the company?" McKenna smiled. "I'm keeping it, but I'm changing everything. Fair wages, ethical practices, real support for employees. No more control, no more cruelty." Samuel nodded. "Your grandfather would be proud." "I don't care if he'd be proud," McKenna said. "I care that I am." Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. McKenna's chest tightened. Not again. She opened it. "McKenna, it's Roman. I know I don't deserve to ask, but I want to be in her life. I want to be the father I should have been from the start. Please, give me a chance." McKenna stared at the message. She thought about everything Roman had done. The betrayal, the cowardice, the abandonment. But she also thought about the way he'd stood up to his mother tonight. The way he'd finally chosen his daughter. She typed back, "One chance. That's all you get. Don't waste it." His response came immediately. "I won't. I promise." McKenna set the phone down, looked at Samuel. "Do you think he means it?" Samuel asked. "I don't know," McKenna said, "but I'm going to give him the chance to prove it." She kissed her daughter's forehead. "Because everyone deserves a second chance. Even the people who don't deserve it." Have you ever had to forgive someone who broke you? Not because they earned it, but because holding on to the pain was destroying you? If you've been there, you know how hard and how freeing that choice can be. Share this if you believe in second chances. McKenna stood up and walked to the window. The city stretched out before her, glittering, endless, full of possibility. She'd started this journey as a maid, invisible, powerless, broken. But now she was a mother, a billionaire, a woman who'd faced her demons and won, and she was just getting started. Because the Giovanni empire wasn't cursed, it was waiting for someone strong enough to fix it. And McKenna Hayes was that someone. But just as McKenna turned away from the window, her phone buzzed one more time. A final message from a number she didn't recognize. "Your fight with Claudette is over, but mine is just beginning. See you soon, cousin." McKenna's breath caught. "Cousin?" She looked at Samuel. "Who else is in this family?" Samuel's face went pale. He grabbed his laptop, started typing frantically. "Oh no," he whispered. "What?" "McKenna, there's someone I didn't tell you about. Someone your grandfather kept hidden. Someone dangerous." "Who?" Samuel turned the laptop around. On the screen was a photo. A man. Mid-30s. Sharp suit. Cold eyes. "Vincent Giovanni," Samuel said. "Claudette's son from her first marriage. He's been in Europe for the last decade. And according to this, he just landed in Los Angeles." McKenna stared at the photo. At the man who looked like Roman, but colder. Deadlier. "What does he want?" McKenna asked. Samuel's voice was grim. "Revenge. The end? Or is it?"